What up? What up?
Welcome back to the Gnostic Informant, and you're about to attain true
True
gnosis.
Gnosis. And we are
Um,
MythVision, ladies and gentlemen.
yeah, I guess we're doing like a joint stream, whatever you want to
Why
call
not?
it. You
Why
know?
not? I mean, they haven't seen a dual dying and rising deity yet, and here's one right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
By the way, I'm the great Cornholia.
Unless you consider Apollo and Dionysus as a dual divinity, which the Delphic community did, in fact. They thought that for 3 months of the year, the cold winter months, that was the time that Dionysus was back in charge. They had I visited Delphi, and even if they had like a stone that they thought fell, like Zeus fell from the heavens, and the stone was like a representation of Dionysus. It had like a serpent wrapped around it, and it was like the grave marker of the body of Zagreus. And the Orphic myth goes, when Zagreus was born, he was supposed to be the next king of the cosmos in succession of Zeus, Kronos, Uranos. He's the biggest god ever, bigger than any other god, bigger than Hermes, bigger than Apollo, bigger than any, just name Ares, whatever, name a god. No god was more important, because no god was ever given that title of succession of the next, king of the cosmos. Long story short, Hera gets all upset. Hera, in her rage, sends the Titans. They go and entice the baby Zagreus. He's not Dionysus yet, and they're like showing him toys. Like, hey, look at this toy. Come here. And then they ritually rip him apart and eat him. And it's a ritual. This is how it's described. It's a ritual consumption. The amophagia.
Yeah, homophobia. Yeah.
The eating of the flesh, and it's
and
actually
eating
the god, right? Now, because they did that, Zeus rips them apart and uses their bodies to create a new cosmos, a new creation, which you and I are a part of. So that's why our flesh is Titan flesh and our soul is Dionysian spirit.
Right.
But that's another story. To get back to the resurrection and get back to Delphi. Athena, with the aid of Apollo, takes the heart takes the remains of Zagreus that's left, whatever his remains are. She takes his heart that's still beating, and she makes a potion, which is later given to Semele, his second birth. But the remains of Zagreus's body are taken to Delphi and buried, given proper burial. He is properly buried at Delphi, and the Delphic calendars that archaeologists have found show Apollo ruling for most of the. I think there's two different versions. One of them 6 months and 6 months, and the other one's 9 months and 3 months. But either way, you have a calendar where for a certain period of time, Apollo is king. And he's ruling. He's on top of Mount Delphi, and he's giving oracles.
Right.
Then he leaves. He goes to the land of the Hyperboreans, which is, people think, is it Germany? Is it Sweden? Who knows?
It does seem
Hyperborea. Hyperborea just means farther north. It means that's what it means.
Yeah,
it means hyper north, Borea north, the farthest reaches of the north. That's where he goes. And then there's people who wrote about the aurora borealis, the lights being Apollo in the wintertime, doing his thing, performing his songs. But anyways, while Apollo's gone, Dionysus raises back up again, and he gives oracles not through the Pythia, through madness, through intoxication. So this is why the wild Dionysia festival, the rural Dionysia, is in the midwinter, right at the solstice, right at the winter solstice. So we don't have any sources that say, the rural Dionysia was on December 25th or something like that, because that calendar didn't exist yet. We're talking about lunar solar calendar. It was the month of the Poseidon, which would have been exactly our December 15th to January 15th. That's what it would. So it's the second week of that month. So it's right. It's exactly
right.
Yeah.
So death is around.
Yes.
I mean, the ancients would have read this as death. Nature itself was reflective of this. With the ball cycle, we get it with the drought, with the certain times of the seasonal festivals. that reflect, hey, we know we're about to enter crisis. We know we're about to have to go into a catabasis in the real world. And entering into that seasonal catabasis, there is a ritual / festival human celebration, believing that they could bring back this god often through their welling and their weeping, and they could somehow bring it back. And I imagine how many years agriculturally there were people like you and I who were just raising their families, and they did not have the success of plants that year or crops, and they thought maybe we did something wrong. Maybe we should have done a deeper ceremony or took this more serious. The gods would have given us those, blessings of resurrected life on earth.
When I was at Eleusis, Elefsina, and it's the modern Greek way to call it, they still have all the symbols on. You can still see all the symbols of the ancient stones that are there. Yeah. And one of the reoccurring themes is the wheat and the chaff. The new initiates were separated wheat from chaff, which is a parable that Jesus brings up. This was the initiates of the Eleusinian mysteries, and the Orphics use terminology like you are a kid dipped in milk, this milk. Here, I'll actually post them up right now.
Okay.
Let's see. Orphic. Here we go. Here's some of the translations of the Orphic tablets by Radcliffe Edmonds III. It's a little bit dated, but they're good translations. Just easy ones I can find right now.
Yeah.
But these are these. First of all, do you have an image of these tablets, these golden leaf tablets that we find them all over the place?
Yeah, let me get one.
We find them in Israel. We find them in Israel. We find them in Egypt. If you find them in Syria, obviously Greece, Italy. These Orphic golden tablets, if you can find them and pull them up for me, please. Mm-hmm. These are all over the Mediterranean, and they date from like the early Hellenistic period, 300 BC, all the way up until the 3rd century Common Era, depending on where they find them, and they all look very similar. So this was a ritual act of burying the dead with a message to the underworld, to Hades. And the message would be, I am parched with thirst, but give me drink from the ever-flowing spring on the right by the cypress. Who are you? Where are you from? I am son of Gaia and starry Uranos. That was one of the messages that you would say when you went to the underworld to get saved. So this is about salvation, right? And the god that saves you is Dionysus. That's not like a...
That's a common
That's very
thing.
Specific thing, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, but that was common.
He's a god of death and resurrection, and he also saves people. It's not just... I'm not just finding a god, like Tammuz, for example. Like Tammuz is a god, yes, he dies, and then some versions of the story, it's Ishtar that descends and comes back up, and there's another version where she brings Dumuzi up with her, and he brings back life. He's the reason why life comes back, and all the dead come with him. So whatever, you could be like, okay, cool, they both die and resurrect, but is Dumuzi saving your soul from damnation? No. Dionysus does that, though. Dionysus and Jesus have those things in common.
Just so they could see. I mean, I didn't want to go too deep here.
No, that's it. I just want people to give it. Just
so many.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's what they look like.
And just one comment, there is a debated one. We were talking about possibly bringing it up. We're not going to waste your time and like diving into this, but there is a 4th, 5th century golden leaf. They bury the dead with these, right? As tickets to enter the underworld and reminders, if you will, on journeying into passing through the river. If you're looking at Greek sources, right? They get the guy in the boat taking them across the waters into the underworld. But these tickets would give them kind of a pass, if you will, into this immortal state. And we have Orphic / Christian golden leafs, where the scholar's not sure if this is like a pagan Christian or like what's going on there, but it's interesting. So there's a debate about that.
Well, if when you talk to at least the good scholars I know, they don't even make a differentiation, because we don't have to make these differentiations.
That's
anymore.
True. That's true.
a thing of the past. That's a New
either
Testament
or.
That's a divinity school thing. Like,
Yeah.
oh, Jewish, pagan, Jewish,
Yeah.
pagan. No, like the Mediterranean world was mixed up. People were doing all types of mixing. Look at
Facts.
the Sibylline oracles. Look at the Greek magical papyri. Look at you know what I mean? So anyways, that's a whole other topic. I could rant about that all day. I want to show you what these tablets actually say. So some of them talk about some like pure, I come from the pure queen of those below the earth, talking about Persephone, the mother of Dionysus, the mother of Zagreus, right? But fate mastered me, and the thunderer striking with his lightning. I flew out of the circle of wearing heavy grief. I came with swift feet to the desired crown. I passed beneath the bosom of the mistress, queen of the underworld, happy and most blessed one. A god you shall be instead of a mortal. A kid, I fell into milk. This is one of the most debated lines in classics. What does that mean?
Yeah.
A kid, I fell into milk. And I can give you my thoughts. I can give you some of the scholarship that's in the Oxford Handbook of Greek Religion. There's a lot of different ideas, but the one that I really think makes the most sense is milk is like a new child drinks milk from their mother.
Right.
So you're
being born.
Reborn. It's a
you're reborn.
It's a resurrection motif. And just funny enough, so look, there's a whole bunch of them, by the way. Look, a god, you have become a man. This is a different one from A4. A kid, you fell into milk. So you can see it again. The sacred meadows of the groves of Phaeresphonia. So that's the mother of Dionysus, right? The queen of the underworld.
Persephone, yeah.
Yeah. And you could just see, like, there's a whole bunch of different versions of this all over the place. Long story. Okay, I'll come back to this. Here, this is the one I wanted to show you. This is a really interesting one. This one's discovered in 1987 in Thessaly. 2 nearly identical tablets in the shape of ivy leaves. Mm-hmm. What is ivy leaves?
Dionysus.
Dionysus. He wears the ivy crown. And this is what it says. Now you have died, and now you have been born, thrice blessed one, on this very day. Say to Persephone, the mother of Zagreus, that Bacchios himself freed you. A bull, you rushed to milk. Quickly, you rushed to milk. A ram, you fell into milk. You have wine as your fortunate honor, and you go beneath the earth celebrating rites just like the other blessed ones. Mm-hmm. And so Bacchios himself freed you.
That's Jesus. Jesus freed you.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? But yeah.
Here's another one. Password. Dionysus. Male child of the Thyrsus. Male child of the Thyrsus. Brimo. That's one of those epithets of Dionysus. So you can see Dionysus is a salvation, death and resurrection god. That is his function of the entire pantheon. That is his role. He's not just the wine god. Wine is part of his rituals, yes. Madness, intoxication, it's all part of the deal. But he is a god of life. He is the Zoe god, the life god. He is the swelling of fruits in the springtime. He's the death of plants and the seeds that are put into the ground like a dead body and buried like a grave. And then the life that comes out of it later on, 9 months later. Right. That's what Dionysus represents.
Even the old man who drinks that liquid, that blood called wine, becomes young again. I mean, dude, every aspect of Dionysus in a material sense, in the real world and in a metaphysical sense, according to these people, we're talking 500 years before Jesus. This guy is a savior deity. This god he's everything. He encompasses all of these aspects from mania to absolute salvation. And
and that mania is the Holy Spirit, analogous to the Holy Spirit. That mania, that madness, that's the Christians would call that the Holy Spirit, especially the Pentecostal Christians who are lit. There's a whole book about this from what's his name? I have it over here somewhere. Is this it right here? No, that's not it. But there's a whole book about
ties in the whole charismatic mystery stuff.
Yeah, there's a whole book on mystery cults where they talk about like the Dionysian cults, snake handling, madness, and then like comparing it to Christian cults and all this stuff, the Nazarenes and even the modern Pentecostals. Anyways, Paul uses this language. Paul uses this exact not exact, but very similar language in 1 Corinthians. He says, I just pulled up brothers and sisters, I could not address you as people who live by the Spirit, but as people who are still worldly, mere infants in Christ, reborn. I gave you milk, not solid food, for you were not ready for it. So as a new child, a new creation, it's the milk. You see what I'm saying? Paul's using this mystery language. He knows what he's doing. Whoever wrote these letters, they know what they're doing.
Well,
people reading this are going to go, this is the man, dude. This is my theology guy. This is
exactly.
I want to follow this guy. That's what they would say.
Here's the biggest problem too. Someone might try to give you pushback, Neal, and you and I both have done this for a while, and they'll go, well, that's common. Milk, every infant drinks milk. Duh. Yeah, we would agree with all of that, every bit of that. When you get to ideas like baptism of the dead, there is no Jewish antecedent for this theology that Paul's teaching on being baptized on behalf of your dead loved ones. And we know that the Orphics and Dionysian cult practiced baptism on behalf of the dead. We have actual contemporary inscriptions for this, but we also have like 5th century BCE, 4th century BCE, Dionysian Orphic mystery religion members who were doing it because their family member died and they got baptized on behalf of them, which then granted them a pass to immortality in the afterlife. Kind of like you kind of get this in the Catholic or, some forms of like indulgences we find throughout history where like a person will do something to indulge on behalf of their loved one who's in purgatory or something, and they need to get through, to that blessed afterlife. Yeah. And it's still carrying over. We're not, I'm not saying necessarily Paul's like looking at an Orphic text going, hey, no, but it's in the air. He has to be bumping into Dionysian, Orphic, Attis members, various people. I mean, he has to be bumping into all these different kinds.
Yeah.
By the way, I have a chart. If you don't mind me sharing this real quick here before we get to, I got a screenshot that I think is pretty cool. It'll tease you for some ideas here, Neal. But let me show you what I have pulled up here. Just so everybody, it's harder to see. I have the whole thing listed out, right? Just a bunch of different gods that have dying and resurrecting themes, and some are stronger than others. But you got Osiris, Tammuz, Inanna, Baal, Adonis, Telepinu, Heracles, Persephone, Marduk. There's an example of that, which you could say is a cautionary case, but I think
it's not just death and resurrection; it's the descent and return. That's I think is even more central. It's the descending into the underworld. It's the returning triumphantly, defeating death, defeating the flux, as Heraclitus would call it, the flux of decay, like conquering that thing that we all are bound to. That's the thing that I'm looking at. So, like, well, I lose brain cells when I hear like Bart Ehrman go, well, this myth does this happened, and this one he doesn't come back physically, he comes back spiritually, so it's different.
Right.
So what? What do you think? Ancients are like bound by your little rules that you just made up right there? Like,
right?
What are we doing here? Are you just turned into an apologist all of a sudden? Anyways, but no, you mentioned a good point. There was deification happening already in aristocratic circles. So the Seleucus rulers, the Seleucid rulers, they were all gods. They all had they were deified. They were sons of Dionysus. They were sons of Apollo. They were gods, and everyone else was just plebs and mortals, and they were above you. People actually thought this. The same with the Ptolemies, the same with the Attalids, the same with the Caesars. So there was Christianity has this thing where everyone gets deified. Everyone gets to participate with Jesus. Jesus takes you all up to the highest levels of heaven. You get to go straight there. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what race you are. It doesn't matter what gender you are. It doesn't matter if you're poor. In fact, the poorer you are, the quicker you're going to get there. And if you're rich, you're actually going to be damned because you already bound to some demon anyway. You like the Caesars, they're from the line of Venus. It's a demon. That's not the true God. The true God is the God of the Hebrew Bible, and his son is Jesus, and he'll take you to heaven. There was this. It was a competing deification, if you will. And the Orthodox Church still has the doctrine of apotheosis to this very day.
That's one thing we can credit.
theosis.
I was going to say we can credit the Orthodox Church on holding to this idea that we do see in Scripture that goes way, way back, that many Christians have completely divorced
Theosis,
from their current. Yeah.
I mean, this goes back to the Orphics. This goes back to, in fact, if you really want to trace this as a genealogy, you got to go to Egypt, Osiris. That's the original death and resurrection cults that offered salvation. And in fact, it's similar. It was a very aristocratic. It was for the pharaohs, not the lowly people. The pharaohs are Horus on earth, and when they die, they become Osiris. They go with the Duat. They become with Osiris. And then as time went on, as the Hellenization happened and different ideas, Stoicism is a big thing. There's more egalitarian ideas out there. All of a sudden, like the Serapian, Hellenistic, Roman Osiris, then everyone can be initiated. It's not just an aristocratic thing anymore. So
the problem is, though, Neal,
big difference between Bronze Age Osiris salvation, which is only a few people can attain, which in the later Roman version. So that's what
the problem is this guy didn't come back to the land of the living, Neal. It can't be resurrection. It has to literally be on the third day.
That's actually false too, though, because in Dionysus' account, he does come back.
Yeah, you do have. You and I actually remember we were diving deep into this at one point when we were responding. I can't remember if it was
I'm sorry, not Dionysus. Plutarch's.
We were looking at one of those sources. It's somewhere around the Common Era.
Plutarch's account, he actually does return. And actually, Horus dies and resurrects too. They both do in Plutarch's account. But yeah, that's one of the major. I gave you a piece of paper from Firmicus Maternus.
Yep.
And Firmicus Maternus is writing in the early 300s. So he's actually writing. He actually wrote this. He dedicated it to Constantine. This book right here. Wow. So this is written. This is like Constantine. I'm trying to convince you that we are the true religion. All these pagans are false. Here's why. And this is what he says. The ointment of Osiris versus the ointment of Christian confirmation. We adduce another symbol in order to lay bare the crimes of polluted thought. It is needful to give a complete systematic account of it, so that all may be led to agree that the law of the divine dispensation has been corrupted by the devil's crooked imitation. There's that old argument. You don't get that from Christians today, because they don't. The problem doesn't exist anymore. They can just say, they have nothing in common. Yeah, or they didn't exist. They just those gods didn't exist. But these Christians are dealing with the cults that are still in existence. They have to come up with some argument. The devils are imitating Christ. They're imitating us. That's what they would say. So he says, on a certain night, a statue is laid flat on its back on a bier, where it is bemoaned in a cadence plaints. Then when worshipers have their fill of fiend lamentation, a light is brought in. By the way, this is exactly how, if you go to an Eastern Greek Orthodox Pascha, Easter Sunday, this is exactly what they do at midnight. They turn off all the lights, and a light is brought in, and then everyone's lamentating. Everyone's crying over the death of Christ, and they're being there's the whole. It's called the Holy Week. They're primed for it all week. The death, and then the resurrection, and then the rejoicing, and you can see all of its. This is all happening with Osiris and Attis, and it's both called rejoicing, hilaria. So he says, next, the priest anoints the throats of all who were mourning, and at once that is done, he whispers in a low murmur, Terete mustai tu teu sesomenu, estai gar emin ek ponon soteria, which is, rejoice, O Mistai. Lo, our God appears as saved, and we shall find salvation springing from our woes. or you could translate it as rejoice, rejoice, mystics. Our God has been saved, and with his and we are saved with him, or something like that. Like you say, like our God is saved from like our God died and resurrected, and now we're gonna die and resurrect. That's kind of what they're saying here with Osiris. This is about Osiris. So, and it says, and then he talks, and then he listen. Let's of course.
This is good. This is good.
He has to argue. He has to argue against this somehow. What does he do? Why do you exhort unfortunate wretches to rejoice? Why do you drive deluded dupes to exult? What hope, what salvation do you promise them, convincing them to their own ruination? Why do you woo them with false promise? The death of your God is known, but his life is not apparent. Like, this is so low tier argumentation. I can say the same thing about your God. Why do I care? Well, that you didn't say anything there. There's nothing there that was convincing that makes me want to be a Christian. This is all very low tier. This is how you know they used a lot of social pressure to switch over the culture from its original traditional, ancestral religions of the different city-states in Athens and Eleusis and Delphi and Rome and Alexandria. They all had their own rituals, Samothracian mysteries, Eleusinian mysteries, Phrygian mysteries, whatever. And people did not want to let go of this. The Eleusinian mysteries, that when Theodosius tried to shut it down, he said, "All right, no more Eleusinian mysteries." They actively rebelled against the crown. They just said, "No, we're not stopping."
Yeah.
And you know what ended up happening? The Celts raided, and the Romans just let them go and sack Eleusis. And that was the end of Eleusis. They gave him no protection because they were like, "Dude, we told you, you guys are illegally practicing your religion. We told you you guys can't be pagans anymore." But they didn't. Nobody wanted to be Christian. I'm telling you, it was like 5 to 10% of the 5 to 10% of the empire converted to Christianity for the first 300 years of Christianity. And then all of a sudden, after 400 AD, everyone's a Christian. Wonder what happened there. I wonder if it's social pressure.
Yeah. You know what I mean? I guarantee you. Look at what he says. He continues. This is interesting what you brought up here. The death of your God is known. So he's talking about their God died, right? But his life is not apparent. Notice what he says. Nor has a divine prophecy ever issued a statement about his resurrection, meaning using scripture, kind of like what they have with Hebrew scripture, right? They're manufacturing those quotes, by the way. Either way. So nor has he manifested himself to men after his death to cause himself to be believed. So your religion didn't fabricate post-mortem appearances like ours. That's what he's ultimately doing. And he provided no advanced tokens of this action, nor did he show by prefiguring symbolic acts. So like he's just like poo-pooing the pagan. Lie.
You guys didn't lie like we did.
You didn't have enough BS propaganda for your resurrection like we do. Ours is more convincing. Oh man, that's good. That's good. That's good ancient propaganda right there.
It is. And look, this time of the year that this was celebrated was guess what? March, middle of March. And the Attis, the one that was celebrated in Rome was for Attis. Now, so here's what bothers me about this topic. When you bring up the Hilaria, there's a knee-jerk reaction for people to go, "Oh, the only sources we have for Hilaria are Firmicus Maternus and Arnobius of Sicca." So like 300s and late 200 or like 250 to 325. Arnobius is like 250 and Firmicus is like 325. So we're talking 3rd to 4th early 4th century sources that specifically mention March 15th. They start like a Lent period. I'm using the term like to describe it. It's not called Lent, but they do like a fasting where they only drink milk. Interesting, milk again brought up. They only drink milk. They don't eat any meat for like I think it's like 9 days. March 15th till the 22nd. 7 days. I think it's a week exactly. Yeah. The 22nd, they bring out, and this. I actually have a source. John the Lydian talks about this. On the 11th before the calends, a pine tree would be carried at the Palatine, the Dendrophori. And then he says, the festival was established by Emperor Claudius.
That's in the 50s.
That's before the Gospels.
Yeah.
So that's the only data we have about when this festival started at all. Only one source, this one, Claudius. This is very important. There's not a single Christian source or any source, pagan source, any source that says this Attis Hilaria festival was started after Easter or came in the 3rd century or came in the 4th century. In fact, we actually have sources that mention Marcus Aurelius adding a day called the Lavatio to it in the middle of the 2nd century. So you have Claudius starting the festival. You have Marcus Aurelius adding things to the festival in the 2nd century. So we already have a period of when this festival came about. It's right around the time the Gospels are being written. Right around the same time. I'm not even saying it came first. I can't decide that yet. I don't have enough data to say. But I could say extremely confident that right around the same time that these synoptic Gospels and John's being written and Gnostic texts are being written, you just had this random pagan festival in Rome at the spring equinox that has a 3-day burial and weeping called the Day of Mourning. 3 days. I'm not making this up. Look this up for yourself.
It's pretty mind-boggling.
And then on the 4th day, they all rejoice that Attis has resurrected.
I mean, think about what you just said, right? For the viewer, it's in spring at Easter,
week.
Okay?
Holy Week.
Same week as the Passover, right?
Now, the Passover does move. We know that.
Yeah, but you know what I mean.
But
it's in that area.
It's in that. It's so the way Easter works is it's trying to figure when the Jewish calendar would have been. So it has to keep fixing itself on the Paschal moon. But that Paschal moon is based on the spring equinox, which is the week of the Hilaria.
I think looking at nature is the best point.
It's lining up. Yeah. So
that's what I mean.
So
nature is the calendar in which we're trying to base this on, and not strictly a exact date necessarily. But it's obviously based on the renewal of life. So you have the renewal of life, but it's this pivotal moment between death to life that they're celebrating in ritual and ceremonial practice. 3 days, just like Inanna or Jonah and Jesus. Here he has 3 days. It's a horrific, mythic, central salvific death. And it's so embarrassing that anyone should say they would never have made this up, right? I'm just saying.
Castration?
Yeah.
Like castration? Yeah.
They would never do
That's
that.
another thing Bart Ehrman says. This is so embarrassing. Why would they want to make up that a guy got crucified?
Yeah.
Why would they
it's not just him.
Why would they make up that a god castrated himself and bled out and died?
There is a consensus of scholars that think that way.
Do they know about the ancient world at all when they say these things? I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah, but even then,
thing, man.
But even then, Neal, like if we go outside of just forget the Greek sources, we can find in Jewish sources, very important figures who have horrific deaths as martyrs and whatnot. So you have the template already prior to Jesus that could work there. But I find that's a weak argument.
Existed. They'll say those people existed. So you can't use that.
Either way, I'm just saying, even then, Jesus could have existed, and they still could have fudged the data to make it perfectly match this time, this place, the events, obviously, where they're narrating a story. So I think you and me are on the same page here. I just figured I'd throw that out there because how often have we heard an argument from embarrassment makes this so evidently historical? And I'm like, really?
No, I don't think so. No,
I would say then Attis is.
I'm not a mythicist either. So I actually do think, I think the evidence lands that there was a crucifixion. I think it's a very specific thing that's going on here. However, it's shaky. Like I wouldn't be surprised if I'm wrong.
Your confidence is not certain. Right. I know.
And then the fact that it happens on the weekend of the Passover and he becomes the Passover lamb, he just happens to be the sacrifice that happens at that same weekend. You got to go, dude. This is all. This stuff is so much going on that you have to have pause and just go. Wait a minute. Are we granting all this stuff for what?
Yeah.
So
what do you think about this too, though?
Another one is the Heracles one.
Let's pause on that 1 second. One more on Attis. I got to ask you, because you've been digging into Attis more than I have, way more. My question to you is this. What do you do when people say, oh, there's a Christian interpretation in these later sources to try and make it sound like you resurrected and stuff? We've read Firmicus Maternus together on this. We've read many of these primary sources of people quoting and saying, our God lives. Like you just quoted with this whole mystery religion thing that he's saying to Constantine.
Yep.
They are saying Attis died.
I would say, what is the source? What's the data on that? I would say, okay, what's the sources that we have that tell us when these rituals were instituted? We have one source that tells us when it was instituted, and it says it happened in the reign of Claudius, 40s, 50s. So,
how much could influence of Christianity be on that?
Right at this. That's at the time Paul's writing. If Nina Livesi's right, this is before any Christian texts exist. Right. And this is not just Nina Livesey. After reading her book, I realized this is actually a popular opinion in German scholarship going back. And
Dutch scholarship,
the whole Pauline corpus was all fabricated. This is actually kind of a popular idea. I didn't know this. American scholars don't talk about this stuff for whatever reason. It's like weird. It's a weird thing. Like you can feel anger from people when you even hint at Bible scholars we know. Oh my God! What are you out of your mind? Get away from me with that stuff. Like what?
It depends on the scholar. It depends on the scholar.
You can't imagine a world where people fabricate text, and we know Christians already do this. We know we know there's pseudo pigrapha Jewish text too. You don't think Paul could be one of these? It's not even just Christian or Jewish text. We have pseudo Platonist text. We have pseudo Pythagorean text. We have pseudo Stoic letters. This is a thing that happened in the ancient world. It was something that just happened. So I'm just saying, the knee jerk reaction to like Nina Livesey's work is weird to me. Anyways,
so back to Heracles.
The point I'm making is the data we have suggests that we can't go back to Ovid. Ovid gives us a whole calendar in his Ovid's Fasti. Ovid's Fasti. He does have a spring Attis festival in his Fasti, but he doesn't give us. There's no details about Attis dying or resurrecting. It's just he just mentions it. He just says in the month of April there's the Great Mother Festival. That's it. That's all so we don't know. Ovid doesn't even say it's called Hilaria. It's called I think it's called Megalesia. I think it's called. So it has a different name. It's around the same time. It's in the springtime. So you're like, it's okay. It's interesting. But the Hilaria proper has to be either after Claudius and before Marcus Aurelius. So in that 100-year period between 40 and 140. Right. 50, somewhere in between there is when you get this death and resurrection, Roman, and this is a Roman imperial cult. This is one of the most important festivals on the calendar. I mean, it's right up there with Sol Invictus was a huge one too. That's later on, obviously. Right. But when you look at that calendar, that later calendar, which is the calendar of Philocalus, it's on there. Hilaria is on there. It's one of the big ones. It's the big spring festival of the springtime, the biggest one of the springtime. And obviously Sol Invictus is the big one for the winter solstice. It has 30 chariots. It's more chariots than Augustus's birthday. So anyways, I'm just trying to show you, this is a big, this isn't just a minor holiday. By the way,
it seems to be in the air.
The reason why I'm bringing that up though, I've heard people say this to me. They go, so what? Romans have a festival for everything. Of course you're going to find a festival of a resurrecting God. And I've heard people say this to me. And I used to take it and go, good, that's fair. And I'd walk away with it. And then, but thinking on it further, the week, it's the same week of the year.
Yeah.
It's death and resurrection and salvation are all there. You have a 3-day motif. What else do you have? You have
a horrific death, not just any death, but like really gruesome death.
There's too much lining up.
Then you have a continuity of tradition.
Yeah, if I just found some random festival in August that said like, Adonis died and came back. Then you
would just say that you would at least say there's a generic resurrection motif about Adonis, but you would not try to tie it closely related. No. Like Attis is a little scary in the sense that it's so close in so many ways.
If John the Lydian is correct, that Claudius instituted this festival, then we need to rethink everything we think about Christianity. That's how scary this question is, and it's not being talked about.
Interesting.
People just stop. People just go. Well, sources are late, so I don't know. The archaeology's not late, So
yeah, dude. Jay West, thanks for being a member. Salvation is yours and Gnosis. You got a super chat, Neal. Let's hit these couple supers.
Okay. Cool.
Gilgamesh, a early dying rising tale aimed at commoners instead of royals. Akkadian Empire aiming stories at newly conquered commoners post expansion.
Gilgamesh is funny because Gilgamesh does not resurrect. Gilgamesh ends tragically with his mortality facing him dead in the face, going, "You're immortal, haha. You had the plant of life. You were about to have eternal life, and then you lost it. The serpent comes and steals it at the end. So that's the opposite.
I agree.
But maybe he meant Demutzi, because there are stories of Demutzi dying, going into the underworld, and then Ishtar going down and saving him, and upon his return, the dead are raised with him. That's what
one could. So I think I think at face value, you and I would say Gilgamesh says death is final. That's what it's trying to tell us. But there is some symbolism in there, I think, with him entering through the mountain of Mashu, going across the waters of death, gets all the way to Utnapishtim, falls asleep for 7 days in this metaphorical way that like he's mortal clearly, and death is going to get him no matter what. And they baked loaves of bread for those 7 days to prove to him, because he was going to be deceptive. And sure enough, when he wakes up, he is deceptive, and he's like, no, I just barely closed my eyes. I didn't go to sleep. And then he's like, I told you mortals would make up bullshit. So he tells his wife, show him the loaves of bread. Some of them have mold, all of that. Anyway, finally sends him on his way with the plant, loses the plant. But I think the tell of immortality in that is simply building the city, and the memory of repeating the story or the epic is Gilgamesh's eternality. It's not going to be immortality the sense.
That's the old Homeric worldview, is that you are more. So there's a stark contrast between the Platonist Christian. I'll put that all in one category: Platonist Christian or Judeo-Christian Platonist. Whereas like this world is decay and death and evil, and flesh is bad, and you need to escape this to go to the good, perfect spiritual realm. Mm-hmm. Whereas Homer and the older Babylonian stories would say, actually, the after the hell, or whatever you want to call it, whatever the underworld, whatever version of the Hades is we're talking about, whether the Babylonian or Akkadian text, whatever word we're using, the underworld is actually not that fun. It's very gloomy. Enjoy life now. That's what Homer would say. And Homer tells the story of Achilles in Hades in the Odyssey, when Odysseus performs the catabasis. He goes down in Hades and he sees Achilles, his great hero. Oh my God, Achilles, the most famous warrior of all time. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm starstruck. And Achilles is like crying. It's like, what the hell? And it's like, because Achilles is like, if I can just go back to the real world for one day, you don't even know how good you have it, Odysseus, that you're still alive. Hades is not fun. It's not where you want to go. Now, the Orphics come along, and they come up with this new thing called the Isle of the Blessed, the Elysium Fields, and there's all these different parts of Hades where good people go, or aristocrats go here, and saved people go here, philosophers go here, and there's all this different stuff. And that's sort of, I think those are like those transitional fossils of like the Christian heaven, if you want to call it that. But anyways, the point I'm making is the Gilgamesh Homeric afterlife is not something you're looking forward to. And I think they were right. They were right to tell people that we should be taking care of this world right here. This is the most important world, the one we're in right now. not
And
the next
that's
one.
Shale's connected to this idea you're talking about, I think. Yeah, I agree.
Shale. Yeah.
That's why the blessings are all now and not later. And then you have Wotanimus Hermacurius. Thank you so much for the super chat. Get the deception book, the Jesus deception book. All right. Thanks for the plug. Yeah. So there's so much here. There's so much here, Neal. We've talked about Attis, which there's a lot more on Attis. We're just hanging out here. We're not like every primary source pulled up. We're just giving you the idea of the dying and rising gods. Eshmun is an interesting one, which you're the one who brought that to my attention, and then we got a hold of Paula Corrente. Melkart is another one with Josephus as well as a source. I mean, where do you want to go next, bro? Heracles.
The Melkart Heracles is perfect because Josephus, who's also contemporaneous with the Gospels, mentions a festival that was instituted in the time of Hiram.
What was that primary source? Do you remember?
Josephus.
Exactly. Yeah. Where in? Do you remember where in Josephus?
Words? I can find it right now.
Yeah, because I think people need to see that, bro. It's Antiquities of the Jews 853 Menander of Ephesus on Hiram and Melkart.
Yeah, he cites Menander, he cites a Hellenistic source. So Menander's like 200 BC, 300 BC, I think it is. You can look that up. Look that up. When is Menander? And here I'll do a word search.
You do that, and I'll look up the source in Antiquities.
I already got the source.
Oh, you have it ready to show?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you want me to ask? When did Menander write what?
Yeah, Menander of Ephesus. When did he live? So here it is right here. He says, Menander of Ephesus recorded in each reign the writings of the kings of Tyre. So you're talking about Phoenician kings going back to this is the Iron Age. Hiram is mentioned in the Bible who reigned at the same time as Solomon, right?
Yeah. Oh, by the way, 200 to 150 BCE is when Menander of Ephesus lived. 2nd century BCE, typically.
Yep. And he talks about, on the death of Abibalus, the kingdom passed to his son Hiram, who lived 53 years and reigned 50. He laid an embankment on the broad place, dedicated the golden pillar to the temple of Zeus, when cut down cedar wood on the mount called Libanus for timber for the roofs of the temples, demolished ancient temples and built shrines dedicated to Heracles and Astarte. That's obviously Melkart, but it's Heracles. That's fine. You can call it that. That Heracles he erected first in the month of Peritius. He undertook a campaign against the people of Utica, who refused to pay their tribute and did not return home until he. Let's see. What is it? Is this the in the month? No, it's called the Agarcia Festival.
Yes, that's what it's called.
Awakening.
Yep. That awakening is the resurrection, the revivification of that god.
Which book is that in again? I'm in the wrong
Antiquities 853 Menander of Ephesus on Hiram
against Apion. That's why I couldn't get it.
Yeah,
that's weird.
Jews Antiquity of the Jews 853. So book 8, chapter 5.
I could just do 853.
Yep, 853.
I'm like, how? I don't know how I got.
Dude, I do it all the time, bro. Yeah.
So here we go. 853. He says, where is it? Here, I'll just do a word search for Heracles. Here he goes. I found it right here. Okay, so it's basically the same story I just told you, where he says it right here.
Mm-hmm.
He cut off to the temples or the roofs of the temples. He pulled down the ancient temples, erected new ones to Heracles, and it says right here, the footnote. Heracles is the Greek equivalent to Tyrian Melkart. All right, now we're on the same page. And Astarte, he was the first to celebrate the awakening. Look at this. And I hate this translation.
What is the Greek? You have to get in the Greek.
Because the Greek is agerson. And you know what that word is? You know what that translate that word in the New Testament as?
Resurrection.
Resurrection. It's used all over. It's all over the New Testament. It's in Mark, Matthew. I think it's in Paul's letters. I think it's definitely in the Gospels though. Now you have the other word, which is anastasi, which means to stand up. But agerson literally means to like awaken, to resurrect. It's actually more directly a resurrection. This should be translated as he was the first to celebrate the resurrection of Heracles in the month of Peridius. So you have a death and resurrection festival in Phoenicia, but and the Galilee is part of Phoenicia in this time period too. By the way, this is the same part of the world. This is right there.
The next door neighbors, literally, like right there.
I'm just saying, like this is not something little here.
No, and look, this is interesting because I've got the book here just to show everybody. This is the riddle of resurrection, the riddle of resurrection, dying and rising gods in the ancient Near East. Trygve Mettinger's book, right? And he goes through, pointing out, Barnett points out the order of these things. You might go, order of what, right? Barnett number 3, the pyre, right? You get the pyre. Then you have the tomb, right? Then you have the mourning. You might be like, what the hell? I'm just leading up to show you something. This right here is a very old, like 5th century, I believe 5th century BCE Melkart Heracles Phoenician inscription. And in the images you're seeing here, this is in a scholarly book. There's a cremation, death, a burial, there's the whole trope of the dying and rising ritual of Melkart Heracles in the Phoenician vase from Sidon. Okay, so it tells you exactly where it's from.
The epiphany of the god and everything.
Everything, bro. Yeah. The epiphany of the god, in the 4th. So I just wanted to show people that this is academic work. They can actually get this book online or order it and be able to go dive in. He doesn't just deal with Melkart. He covers so many different gods and different ideas. But that needs to be seen for people, I think, for them to understand. And what about the one about Heracles getting killed by Typhon? Neal? That's another one in the quell bird. There's a quell bird brought near him and it rises him from the dead. In the same body, he's resurrected. So if you want to be like pedantic about details, like people go, oh, no, but they never resurrected in the same body. Heracles gets killed by Typhon in one of the primary sources, and literally a quell bird is brought near him and he rises from the dead. I don't know the significance of the quell bird and why that quell bird.
Well, Heracles also resurrects people too. There's a story where Heracles resurrects Theseus.
Oh, Alcestis. Yeah, here.
Alcestis is one of them. That's one of them. So Heracles doesn't just resurrect himself. He raises the dead. He's like, is he like Lazarus? Like he raises people from the dead too, which is
right.
I think is even more important. That's even more, that matters more, I think. Especially if you have both though.
Then you make me think of Asclepius. Golly.
Asclepius. It says right here, I'm looking at a source right here from Philodemus.
You want to share it?
I'll just read it out.
Okay.
It says Asclepius, a lyric poet, because entreated by Artemis, he raised Hippolytus from the dead. Eratosthenes notes that Asclepius' transgressions, raising the dead, the art of the physician, and the last his resurrection was that Hippolytus, son of Theseus. Hold on 1 second. I'm trying to find the one about Heracles, which is Alcestis. That's the one we're talking about. 2nd century BCE. Agatharchides, 2nd century BCE, includes Alcestis among those who Heracles raised. Alcestis, here, actually, this one I'll share. I'll share this one so you can see it. Let me just,
while you do that, I'm pulling up the Courtney Friesen interview just to show, because in the intro, I want to have a scholar who suggests that he thinks there might be a connection between Paul's soteriology, his idea of atonement, and this exact story you're talking about from Heracles. That there could be something to it.
So this is 2nd century BCE. Alcestis, Protesilaus, and Glaucus, who died, rose again. Kai te men Alcestin Kai, Protesilon Kai Glaucon, Teletekotas, Pauline, and this one actually uses the traditional word for resurrection, Anastani. The one being brought up by Heracles, so Temen, Uf, Heracles, Anaktheson. So the being raised up by Heracles, literally being raised up. That's what this word means. Raised up. He's being raised up by Heracles. Of the others, because of the brother of his wife. So this is like we're talking. this is nothing. Jesus isn't doing new things that are like different from other gods. These gods died, resurrect, and they resurrect people from the dead.
What's that source you have? What is this book? I want this. If I don't already have it,
I'll send it over.
Please do.
Oh, here, check this out real quick. Before I forget, Dagon.
We getting into Dagon.
So, I almost forgot about this. This is huge.
So Dagon, really?
No. Well, Dagon.
I was going to say that's interesting. That Samson dies in the temple of Dagon, but
check this out.
Okay.
I gotta find. Where is it? Actually, I'm not gonna find it this way. It's gonna take me forever. It's Arnaud. D. Arnaud. This is
oh my God, I remember this one. Man,
yeah,
we need to remember this.
Yeah.
God, this is so good. Yeah,
okay.
This is good.
So this is another Iron Age, maybe even Bronze Age festival.
Can you zoom in for people?
I'm just gonna find it first, and I'll zoom in when I find it.
Okay.
Because I got to go through Arnaud. He's the citation that this is from.
Yeah.
Is this it right here?
There's 666 people watching total.
Coming up. Kisu. Here we go. Kisu Festival. That's the name of it. So this is a Kisu Festival. It's also during the springtime.
Mm-hmm.
The Kisu Festival is the most difficult to interpret as the whole of the MR liturgy. So Professor Arnaud, this is a professor from an Assyriologist, has proposed seeing these festivals as a commemoration of a goddess's descent to the underworld and later resurrection.
A god or goddesses. Yeah.
So this is like Assyrian, Ishtarian.
Yep.
But if you look up Kisu, it's a
festival. Tammuz.
It's a Dagon springtime festival. So, like Kisu, Dagon, the priestess moans, laying. So there's like ritual mourning. And look at this. Ready for this? This is going to blow your mind. Ready for this?
Okay.
The presence. Okay, here we go. I already read this part. The goddess's descent and later resurrection. The fact of laying down the statue of Ninkor was symbolic gesture of a burial of a goddess. The presence of a mourning woman.
Of the mourning women, yeah.
Would also favor this interpretation. On the fourth day, we already talked about two other festivals. The Attis festival, obviously the Easter festival, and then there's the whole Ishtar died. She was dead for 3 days. Now here's another one. Now here's a third. Here's a fourth one now. And this is a totally different festival where on the fourth day, the goddess is made to reappear. So this god is dead for 3 days. On the fourth day is made to reappear. And it's literally raised. Taboo is the word. So this is from a text called the something liturgy, MR liturgy. So this is not like made up. Following Arnaud's interpretation, by the way, just so people know, there are different interpretations of this. This is not every scholar believes this. I'm just this is Arnaud's interpretation. Just so everyone's clear.
But he's giving a case.
Yeah, he's giving a great case. The underworld part would be personified by deities such as Suala and Rasha. From another point of view, the fact of laying down the statue of Ninkor in the temple of Dagon may simply mean the sacred marriage rite between the divine couple. The presence of the priestess, Nugatu, may also take some route. There is no clear indication to see this person as a mourner. The etymology of her name provides no conclusive data since the relation with Og, to shout, does not. So this is the other argument, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, the connection between Suala and Sual is possible. Suala may be equated with Narbi, an Anatolian god identified with Ninurta. Arnaud strengthens his argument for the existence of gods who die by means of an onomasticon.
Mm-hmm.
There is the theophoric names with the element Yamut, which, according to Arnaud, in principle, are related to mot, to die.
Right.
So is the citation.
Yeah, dude. this is real bona fide
Yeah.
academic here. Trying
exactly. Yeah, no, that's enough. You get the point.
Yeah, I'll show a few things myself real quick if we could do that,
Yep.
just to give people something interesting here. This goes back. This website is, you just Google "Death and Resurrection of Bel Marduk" or Marduk, and in the translation, when you read this, because you can see the broken spots with the ... Let me see how this looks on your end. Okay,
And
that's way too narrow. Let me do.
And my understanding is the Bel tradition sort of subsumes the Mutsi tradition.
Right.
So Adonis and Bel are like competing. Adonis is in Syria, Bel is in Babylon. And they're both they both have like genealogical roots going back to Dmutsi and Marduk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the broken off is ... So the tablet we have is, not perfect, but that is Bel, who is confined in the mountain. He brings him forth. The messenger of the Lord hastens, saying, who brings him forth? He who goes brings him forth. He who rides, that is he who the mountain goes, to which he goes. That is the house at the edge of the mountain wherein they question him. Nebo, who from Barsippa comes, that is he who comes to seek after the welfare of his father Marduk, who is held captive. And then ... who is in the streets hasten. They seek for Bel, saying, where is he held captive? For thee, blank, 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 who stretches out her hand. She prays to Sin and Shamash, saying, give life to Bel. Bel is Marduk, by the way. So, it goes through talking about blood, all this stuff. At the end of this tablet, this is 700 roughly BCE, around this period. It talks about the resurrecting, like he's alive again. It's like it's shouting, saying he's alive. And some scholars go, well, this is just propaganda, political propaganda, and that Marduk isn't actually risen from the dead. And other scholars say, no, I think this signifies at least an idea in some locale that Marduk, Bel Marduk, was understood as a dying and rising god. There's a debate among the scholars on this issue. The point you brought up about Heracles, I think, needs to be, if you're really wanting to get into the weeds, check this interview out, right? Tell me if you can hear this, by the way.
Right, while we were still weak.
Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Okay. So real quick, just the intro. I get in the intro and really point out a few highlights.
But Romans chapter 5, verse 6, right? While we were still weak, at the right time, Christ died for the ungodly. So that's the idea of the substitutionary atonement. And then verse 8, God proves his love for us in this, that while we were sinners, Christ died for us. So that death for another person. I mean, that's not a unique idea to Christianity or any one particular idea of sacrificial atonement than any other. But there's one way in which it's framed in verse 7, between verses 6 and 8. Indeed, rarely will anyone die for a righteous person, though perhaps for a good person, one might actually dare to die. And here we get into what seems to me as a possible allusion to quite a popular Greek play called the Alcestis, in which the whole plot turns on this idea that the wife, Alcestis, died in place of her husband, Admetus. And the backstory is quite important here because Admetus was a virtuous person, as Paul's theoretical virtuous person that I just read about in Romans, right? Who would die for a virtuous person? Well, we know that Alcestis was willing to, but there's one that stands out because it has this pagan image, as you refer to, and that's the story of the Alcestis, the heroine who gave her life for Admetus, and that's displayed on one side of this room in the catacomb, and then Heracles raising her from the dead and presenting her back to her husband, which is how the story ends, which we're now just coming to. So it has resurrection to life. So it has both. So this one play has both the sort of substitutionary death theme, and it also has as a kind of resurrection. But of course, the most famous one is the story of Lazarus in the Gospel of John. And so it's in a striking kind of coincidence, if it is a coincidence, these two neighboring rooms in this catacomb have a depiction of Lazarus being raised in one and of Alcestis being raised in the other.
And Orpheus in another one. Orpheus playing his lyre on one of in that exact catacomb.
Damn,
so that
bruh.
connection to the Orphic mysteries. Check this out. Ready for this? Diodorus?
Yeah.
Diodorus talks about Isis. she discovered a drug which gives immortality, by means of which she not only raised from the dead her son Horus, who had been the object of plots on the part of the Titans. The Titans, who kills Dionysus, killed Horus, and she raises him from the dead. It's a Hellenistic retelling of the Dionysian resurrection story for Horus. So what's to say that this can't happen? This sort of like mechanics can't be being applied to the gospel or something, right?
That's exactly what he was trying to say.
That's what I've heard a lot of people say this. What's the one scholar who calls it a theocracia? He uses the term theocracia. It's when you have different theologies that are like have all these things overlapping, but they're different and they all have their own things. But the theocracia you can put together is like sort of like this figure of a god who, he dies, he comes back to life, and in his resurrection, you also get to take part in his resurrection. You like take part in his cycle of life and death. There's a theocracia happening. It's very common. Look at this. Horus, when translated, is Apollo. What's interesting about that is, going back to my notes, I have a source here from Philodemus. And it says, Philodemus talks about the Titans ripping apart the divine child. So I just talked about Horus. But this is what he says. Similar agreement is found in the tales about their sepulchures. Tafas, like the tomb, right? The Egyptians, as has been stated, so we're talking about Egyptian stuff here. Are we talking about Horus? Are we talking about Osiris? Well, let's follow them. Point out that the tombs of Osiris in many places and the people of Delphi believe that the remains of Dionysus rest with them close beside the oracle, and that the holy ones offer a secret sacrifice in the shrine of Apollo whenever the female devotees of Dionysus wake the god of the mystic basket. And so Martin Nilsson argues that the passage gives the impression that Plutarch has in mind that not the awakening of a sleeping god, but raising him from the dead. 212 CE, the people of the Council of Rhodes honored a priest of Bacchus Dionysus with 360 drachmas to the individual charged with waking Dionysus. Someone got paid 360 drachmas to resurrect Dionysus for a festival. And you know what festival that is, right?
Which one?
Theodosia. It's the
winter time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Having given
January 5th.
Yeah. This is what the source says. It's from 200 AD. Having given the hydraulic organist who wakes the god 360 drachmas to those who sing hymns to the god each month, 40, and for the descent and return of the god. That's it. It ends there. And Nilsson believes that the two ascents are Dionysus' rebirth after being dismembered by the Titans and his ascent with Semele. Given the tradition of Dionysus' resurrection, it is doubtful that the reference here is merely a ceremony to reanimate a statue, particularly since the text refers to his descent and ascent. And that's what I want people to really take home. It's not even about the dying and coming back to life. It's about the katabasis and the anabasis. That's the central motif here. So,
yeah, that's such a prevalent motif in all of this. I just don't get the only pushback I can imagine is that we just have this living religion that, has seen it very problematic, especially once they've post-enlightenment, especially it feels like, in how they're engaging with it. They got to show that stuff didn't happen, but the C.S. Lewis's show up and go, this one did. This is the historical one, and all the others are myth or fabricated. And that's why I think a lot of mythicists get a little, and if I'm being fair to the mythicists, is that they get a little uneasy because they feel like if you say there was a guy, you're giving credit to the whole propaganda machine of this is a true religion and this guy really did the things, and you're giving them a leg. But I just want the facts, and I want to be where I think makes the most sense. And I think that we should all agree, at least both sides, whether you're mythicist or think there was a guy, that we're reading a story, a well-crafted story that, that didn't happen. That Jesus that you're seeing isn't the case. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Can you do me a favor?
Mm-hmm.
Look up the Wikipedia page for the Adonia Festival. There's
Adonia.
another one. We're not even close to being done, dude.
I know.
We're not gonna finish. There's so much. There's so much. I can write a whole book on this. I should write a book on this. Look up the Adonia Festival. And while you're looking that up, I'm going to read something while you're looking that up. So, a Theocritus, 3rd century BC Alexandrian poet, in his idyll, writes on the Adonia in Alexandria, describing Aphrodite rejoicing with her husband, Adonis, although he leaves the next day, and the chorus mourns. So you have the weeping and the mourning, and the rejoicing. And then it says, "You alone of the demigods," they say, "beloved Adonis, go both here and also to Acheron." The Scholiast Theocritus writes that Adonis spends 6 months with Aphrodite and 6 months with Persephone. And by the way, this actually has its roots in Sappho, who writes the weeping of Venus or Aphrodite for Adonis, which is a rewriting of weeping over Dumuzi. So Sappho, who's writing around like 600 BC, or 6th century BC, I think it's right around 6. She's in right around that time where the Syrians are still around. So myths about Ishtar and Dumuzi are still being tossed around in that time period. So she rewrites the story. It's Venus and Adonis. That's where it comes from. It comes from Ishtar and Dumuzi. Now,
oh gosh.
Now
you got me thinking of Esther now, and that's a whole. Bro, we never end, do we?
Theocritus says it is that after the death of Adonis, spends 6 months in the arms of Aphrodite and 6 more on the arms of Persephone. That which is said to is because Adonis is the grain which is sown, passes 6 months in the ground after sowing, and Aphrodite has him for 6 months, which the mildest open air, and people harvest him. So he's literally a death and resurrection of fertility. He's literally the life. He's like another life-giving god.
Right.
Lucian, 2nd century AD, writes in his Biblion about his Biblion Aphrodite, that after they finish beating their breasts and lamenting, by the way, if you're a Assyriologist, you know what I'm talking about. This is what they do. The weeping for Dumuzi. They beat Ishtar beats her breasts. She rips her hair out. She puts ashes on her face and sackcloth. She wears sackcloth and she beats her breasts. Lucian rewrites this. He says, after they finish beating their breasts and lamenting, they first make offerings to Adonis as the dead. And afterwards, on the next day, they claim that he lives and sends him into the air.
I mean, come on, bro.
So,
by the way, I was just showing the
yeah. Okay, this is the reason why I wanted to show this up. When does this take place? Does it say?
When does? So I know that there's
slow down.
Asmaphoria.
No. We're talking about the Adonia.
So the Adonia, the date of the Adonia at Athens is uncertain. With ancient sources. Yep, 415.
Look what it says. Aristophanes Lysistrata has the festival take place when?
Early spring of 415 BCE. So they're just saying they don't know how ancient it goes, but they know it's at least 415.
The oldest source we have of that gives it a date. It happens in the springtime. And why? Are you really surprised? Where else would this festival be of the resurrection of life, of plant matter? You think it's going to be in the middle of the winter?
Yeah, the coincidence that Jesus, getting back to Jesus, just so happens to be on the same time, should raise at least suspicion. Okay,
yes,
at least
exactly.
We shouldn't rule out the potential for placing him at this time and having it at this time. Is it purely coincidental that a guy at Passover was making a bunch of ruckus and it happened?
It's possible. That could have been part of the reason why they gave him this motif of being because there's something weird going on. Yom Kippur is the is the atonement sacrifice. So the Christians are actually getting things mixed up, and it might be because he died on Passover, because the Passover lamb does not atone for sins. It just marks. You did blood on the wall, marked you from death of the firstborn. That's all it did. So it really wasn't a big deal. The Passover lamb doesn't save you from death, really.
Well, the angel of death did, if they're interpreting it that way,
it kills the firstborn. But
the
atonement for sins, what I'm talking about, that's Yom Kippur. That's Leviticus 16.
Right.
That doesn't happen at Passover.
It's a different time of the year.
Yeah. So the Christians, what I'm positing, I'm trying to be as fair as possible here, and going, this could be why they're forcing it at this time. Right. But it's also possible he got crucified in October, and they rewrote the story to be cosmically aligned with all these other myths. Yeah. That's another possibility.
Note the fact that the Adonia, like we were just reading, it's interesting right above what you were looking at, where it describes it, right? Over the course of the festival, the Adonia, Athenian women took the rooftops of their houses. They danced, sang, and ritually mourned the death of Adonis. They planted gardens of Adonis, lettuce, fennel seeds planted in potsherds, which sprouted before withering and dying. After the rooftop celebrations, the women descended to the streets with these gardens of Adonis and small images of him. So like they're already now celebrating, right? His resurrection. They then conducted a mock funeral procession before ritually burying the images and the remains of the gardens at sea or in springs. The rites observed during the festival are not otherwise paralleled in ancient Greek religion, like Adonis himself. They probably originated in the Near East, like you were just reading before we.
And the name Adonis is a Semitic name. It's coming from that Bel Demutzi tradition. That's what it looks like. That's what Adonis is.
Tammuz.
Sappho. Yeah, Demutzi, Tammuz. Sappho's the first Greek poet to mention Adonis, and that's early on. So Adonis is very old. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Adonis is old, but you're not going to find Adonis in like Linear B. You're not going to find. You're going to find it's cognate with Adonai, the Lord. Like that's his name, means the Lord. You know.
Actually, you had a super chat that I think is relevant to this linear A though. Thank you again, Anti-Contrarian. Really appreciate the super chat. Unique dying rising themes in Minoan civilization. A linear A is still a mystery, but they have some curious symbols, snake handling statues, the labyrinth, etc. I can't imagine dying and rising doesn't go way back. I mean, it's a human.
So we don't even for linear A. You're right; it's a mystery. We don't know what it says, but we can read linear B, and we have in linear B references to Dionysus as the son of Zeus. So you have it, and he's a life-giving god. He's a life growing of crops god. So you have that god. You have that god with that function as far back as the Mycenaeans. So I think 1300 BC is the date of the first time we find Dionysus in the sources. Dionysus is older than Yahweh. So
Dionysus. I remember looking it up. Dionysus.
It literally means Zeus. It can mean Zeus of Nisa, Mount Nisa. That's the most common etymology. But then there's another tradition from Pherecydes of Syros, who's a pre-Socratic philosopher, who says that it's like some Near Eastern Nusa means like tree in like Semitic and some like Phoenician thing or something. He's like it means like Zeus of the tree Zeus.
Interesting.
That's what
it makes sense. I mean, he is life vineyard and all that. But
if he's correct, then that would mean the Mount Nisa is a folk etymology based on Dionysus.
Based on the name,
if he's correct, or he could just be wrong, and there could have been a Mount Nisa, and it just could be he's Zeus of Nisa.
Yeah, because in the tradition, I think Hesiod talks about the Maenads being at Mount Nisa, and
it's from the
constant
from the east.
Persecution. Yeah,
all the sources agree. Homer even says this. Homer says Mount Nisa is in Phoenicia near Egypt. Phoenicia near Egypt. That's Judea.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's what he says. That's what he says about the origins of Dionysus.
And the sea that has no fruit, which is the Dead Sea in one of these sources. I can't remember if it's the what is it? My brain, something to the it's the,
yeah, I remember seeing that one.
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, it's the sea that has no fruit, which is the Dead Sea. So it's around this region. It's pretty interesting that the pirates were trying to get booty from the parents, right? They had to go to this region to find his parents, which would have been his origins. And what do we do with Scythopolis, man? I mean, there's birth narratives of him being from yeah, man. We went there, dude. That was insane.
Yep, and that's where. So there's something about Dionysus that links him to the Near East, and then of course, Herodotus, when he's talking about the god, he starts talking about these people that are living in. He calls them Arabians, but really he's like people that live between Phoenicia and Egypt. That's basically what he's talking about. And he says they worship only two gods, Dionysus and Aphrodite. And it's interesting because the only thing you could find that is similar to that is the cult of Asherah and Yahweh.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is Herodotus equating Yahweh and Asherah with Dionysus and Aphrodite, and what he's really talking about is the Yahwistic cult, which would be the proto-Jewish Yahweh cult, which would be Asherah and Yahweh, like the what's that inscription called? The
Quintilla Druid.
Quintilla Druid, yeah, where it says here's Yahweh and his Asherah. That seems to be the original Yahwistic cult, was a dual God and mother and father thing. And that's what, so Herodotus, who's like trying to make sense of what's going on over there, using Greek terminology, says, oh, they only worship two gods over there. They don't worship they have no pantheon. They only worship Dionysus and heavenly Aphrodite, Urania.
Let me show that Quintilla Druid just so people at least who are watching, they like visuals. Yeah,
I could pull up Herodotus.
This is an Etsy version, but it's pretty, so it's worth it. That's reconstructing right here, so you can see better. Okay, got it. That gives you a better idea. Up here, it would say Yahweh and his Asherah, and Asherah, of course, doesn't have the dangly bits there in the middle, but he has the big old,
And notice how he's the horn god. He's got the phallus. That's very, I mean, that's as Dionysian as it gets, dude. That god with his phallus hanging out with horns. I mean, the Orphic hymns are Dionysus is the horn god, the horn child, the horned one, the horn, the horn, bull horns, goat horns. That's Dionysus. And that's what Yahweh seems to be doing in. And by the way, the name Dionysus is Yah-oh. That's one of his names, Yah-oh.
Yeah.
So there's just like so much data lining up for this Dionysian Yahweh connection. Here's what Herodotus says. There are no men who respect pledges more than the Arabians. By the way, he never mentions Judeans, Israelites, Hebrews. Those words never show up once in Herodotus. So just keep that in mind. This is the manner of their giving them. A man stands between two parties that would give security and cuts with the sharp stone, palms with the hands of the parties by the thumb. Guess where you find this? In the Torah. There's the Torah. I forgot exactly what verse. Torah verse about blood oath. What is it called? Wait, hold on a second. I think it's Exodus. No, that's not it. I'll find it in a second. Let me read this first. I mean, I will find it. I know I did a video on this. So by the thumb, he takes a piece of wood from the cloak and smears with the blood the 7 stones that lie between them, calling on Dionysus and heavenly Aphrodite. And when he has fully done this, that he has given sacraments, security commends to his friends, the stranger, or his countrymen, and his friends hold themselves bound to honor the pledge. They deemed no other gods save Dionysus and heavenly Aphrodite. And they say that the cropping of their hair is like the cropping of the hair of Dionysus. What? Weird.
That's interesting.
But check this out, right? What was I going to say? 7 stone. Actually, I'll find that later. But yeah, go ahead. What were you saying?
Okay, so we got a couple more super chats actually, just to go ahead and get those out of the way.
Yeah, do that.
Anti-Contrarian 3788, thank you so much for the super chat. God of Knossos, Dionysus tablets found at Pylos.
That's the one I was talking about. That's a Dionysus one.
Got it.
13th century
That's
BC.
13th. Yeah. Very old. I was going to say Nisam Amzalog would be the guy to really ask more about this, because he's doubled down since we last were reading his material. He wrote a book that's been written in a whole nother language, and we'll have to run it through AI at some point to get it translated over for you and me. But he told me, he's like, you have barely scratched the surface. He told me, he goes, you need to go back to Egypt, and we got to look at some of the gods there and their influence as well. He said there's so much, but Dionysus is no doubt obviously part and parcel with the whole Yahwistic thing, he thinks. So
yeah,
Yahwism and Dionysus, he thinks, ultimately, for those who don't know, he thinks that Yahweh, based on metallurgical trade routes, because there's a lot of metallurgy happening in Northwest Arabia, in near Cantillida Druid, right there at the peninsula, where we would say the Exodus took place. There's a lot of metallurgy, and the trade route took the metal all across, of course, especially during when the sea peoples are traveling and whatnot. But it goes into the Aegean, and the god of this metallurgical cult also went into the Aegean. And with that, keep in mind, who is Dionysus's brother? Hephaestus. He is the blacksmith. He is the metallurgy god. He is the god who brings the tools, the weapons, and he's a craftsman. This is what he identifies Yahweh as, someone who is all about metallurgical, is a fire deity. Now, whether or not you buy this hypothesis is your choice. But if you read the Exodus narrative and stuff carefully, you will notice that the golden calf that Aaron builds, he melts the metals to craft a god. They're clearly in the story giving you indications that this god is a god of fire. This god is a god of light. This god, and he says this was the elements you would find, and he mentions Mircea Eliade as another mythologist that you should look to on metallurgy and sacred cultic activities in the ancient world. So he thinks Yahweh made it into the Aegean in under the name Dionysus in the Aegean. That's his thoughts. So
here I found
it's interesting.
Yeah, no, that's look. Check this out. I'm gonna play my video for a second on Yahweh.
Yeah.
So remember how I just showed you about the blood oath thing from Herodotus?
Yes.
Look at this. This is from Leviticus 4:6.
Okay.
I just didn't remember exactly what verse it was.
Before the Lord.
Hold on, let me just
in front of the curtain of the sanctuary.
Oh, you read this.
That? Who's that voice? It's angelic. Holy smokes.
Oh, yeah, by the way, this is a 1st century BC, or I'm sorry, AD, or at least it could be BC, but Pompeii was destroyed by a volcano in 79. Right. And they found this there. And look at the priest, the Eleusinian Hierophant. Look how he's dressed. He's got golden tassels, a blue coat over white. And that's this is exactly how the Levite priests are described. They have a golden tassels hanging down with a blue overcoat over white. The priests are literally dressed exactly the same way.
Would you say that before you play, would you say this is why we find sources like the various Greek and Roman sources that say the Jews are obviously imitating Dionysus in the temple because their priests act this way, they celebrate on these days, they do similar behaviors and festivities and whatnot on the same.
Makes this argument.
That's what I mean.
I would say it's not it's more complex than that. I think they have they have a common source. Some sort of Bronze Age god or Iron Age god that they're both sort of descending from. Some sort of, because there's an Anatolian god called Yayos, and it's Apollo. And I think there's something going on with that, some sort of like dual aspect of Apollo and Dionysus. You find this in the Thracian religion. The Thracians have a god who is both Apollo and Dionysus. He's a dual god. He like changes his depending on the times of the year. He's a solar deity and a chthonic vegetation deity. So I think there might be something going on there. That's very speculative. I'm not even going to die on that hill. But this, I want people to see this. Sure. This is interesting.
Wearing similar white and blue robes with golden tassels that are seen among priests of Dionysus and Demeter at Eleusis, and the blood oath rites, which seem to look very similar to Leviticus blood oath rites.
He is to dip his finger into the blood and sprinkle some of it seven times before the Lord, in front of the curtain of the sanctuary.
Now compare this to the rite oaths. The Herodotus records.
Yeah. That's for doing oaths. That's very particular ritual. Not just doing it for like fun. It's to seal an oath to make a deal with a stranger. Right. So some sort of stranger, some sort of some other tribe, maybe two tribes among the 12 tribes, something like that. This is what they would do. Look what Herodotus says.
Among these local Arabians,
there are no men who respect pledges more than the Arabians. This is how they give them. A man stands between two pledging parties, and with a sharp stone cuts the palms of their hands near the thumb. Then he takes a piece of wood from the oak of each and smears with their blood seven stones times that lie between them, meanwhile calling on Dionysus and the heavenly Aphrodite.
Oh, snap! Oh, snap!
I mean, look, there's a lot of things lining up, man. Just saying.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's no way to prove, you know what I mean? It's just a fun mental exercise to think there might be some common ground here, bro. I think we're touching something here that's deep. You know, before we move to, I wanted to just bring Zalmoxis into the picture for a moment, but before we do, I think it's important that we address Victor Engelman's super chat. Victor, he's going to be joining me in the future on the Origins of Hell on a live stream. And he's in Germany. So Victor, I look forward to doing that, try and make a time that works where it's not too late for him. Could Jesus Natsur be Jesus of Nisa, not Nazareth?
Maybe. I mean,
what are your thoughts?
That's interesting. Well, here's the thing. Nazareth, we don't really. I've been critical of mythicists for saying Nazareth doesn't exist because we found a city that looks to be Nazareth, like it's right where Nazareth would have been, but we don't really know. There's not like an inscription there that says, "Here, welcome to Nazareth."
Yeah,
there's a possibility that Nazareth is not a real place.
I wish Josephus would have just said, you know, there's a place,
Josephus
and then
doesn't mention it, right?
Right. I don't think he does. No. Let me double check that. Let me just see.
I don't think he does. And guess what else is never mentioned by Josephus or anybody? This city of where the miracle of Cana. Cana means reed in Greek. So it just means like reed city. There is no Cana. There's no Cana mentioned by anyone until Eusebius.
Right.
So these might so a lot of the gospels are just mythological stories, like not even real.
I would be quite, I'm very skeptical, but Sepphoris obviously is mentioned, which we've been there.
Is a real city, yeah.
But
and this is I got to say this because it's very likely that the city that they found right next to Sepphoris, if it's not Nazareth, what is it then? We have no name for it then. So it almost is. It's most likely Nazareth by default.
Yeah.
We don't have any other contender of what we have no idea what else. It could just be a lost city that we found.
Right. Yeah. I mean, again, you got to be skeptical or at least cautious. Again, I think that, you know, if you take that all the other places found are in the New Testament can be found in Josephus, but Nazareth isn't mentioned, you could look at that two ways. You could say, well, that means because they were making real places throughout the Gospels, this one's possibly a real place. Or you could take the opposite and say, this one isn't found in Josephus, so the author fabricated this place. Or it may be that it means something other than. But I've heard the argument that he was called Jesus of Nazareth to make interesting sense from the historical angle that they wanted to separate him from the other Jesuses. There's so many different Jesuses that they needed you to know he's from this poor backwater of nothing good. So then that's why the Gospels have to place him in Bethlehem. You know, that they're forcing him into a place he wasn't really originally from. and then just say, well, he grew up in Nazareth. We don't want him born there.
Yeah.
Because no prophet, the Messiah couldn't be born from whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Anyway.
exactly. And I agree with that. By the way, Yay, the first two letters of Jesus' name, Yay. I know the name comes from Yeshua in Hebrew. I'm not stupid.
Mhm. Yep.
But to a Greek speaker who doesn't know Hebrew, they hear the name Jesus, and they hear Yay, and that's a very specific epithet of Apollo and Dionysus. It's a cry. It means it's literally Yay, Yay. It's a cry. Right. It's a crying of mourning and ritual mourning. So the story has this guy whose name is Yay, who's a healer, who heals people, and he's ritually mourned over.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you didn't know any Hebrew at all, you would go, "Oh, this is Yayos. I know who this is." They just changed the name a little bit. And I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just saying,
yeah,
there could be some puns being played here.
Yeah,
There could be some. I'm just throwing this out there.
It's interesting you threw that out there because I just finished an episode. I might as well tease people just to tell them the name Muhammad, right, that we talk about. You know how you have Muhammad mythicist and Muhammad historicist, and most scholars think there was probably a historical Muhammad.
Mhm.
But the name they've identified seems to be potentially a title, right? And there's also this hypothesis of a later source that tries to argue it's much later. Scholars don't take it serious in terms of proving that Muhammad, was named something else before his title named Muhammad. But this scholar that I just interviewed, this is cutting edge stuff, dude. This has never been released. They deciphered a Southern Arabian dialect that has never been, it's painted on stone. It's 2,500 years old. We're talking 500 BCE. And no one's been able to decipher it. And there's various forms of it. And in the early 1900s, British archaeologists found it, and they didn't know what to do with it. And then just 2 decades ago, they had it all like in an encyclopedia and all there, but they could not decipher it. He's deciphered the text. And I just interviewed him. Yes. And guess what's in the freaking text?
What?
500 BCE, Muhammad.
Really?
Yes. And it has divinity significance, but
it's like a deity.
But Muhammad and Mahmed is a common name for actual people. By the time you get into the 7th century, humans are actually being named these things. So it's kind of hard. He points out that, like, was there still a significance by the time you get into the Common Era of that divine lineage behind the name? Also, by the way, Ali, his companion Ali, which was like, I believe, his nephew or something, Ali was also a divine. I don't know if it's a theophoric name, but there's a divineness. But all it is an archaeological
Ali
past.
means my God. Ali. That's what it means.
But
that's literally
humans
what
were
Jesus
named
says on the cross. He says, Ali, Ali.
His point to this was like, notice that you and I know we can read Christians. Guess what their names are? Dionysus. But we don't then think they're pagan just because they're named something that has an ancient pedigree. So it's a complex issue, bro.
That's my point with Yayos.
Right.
We know it has. We know the etymology of Yeshua is a translation of Jesus is a translation of Yeshua, but this is a Greek text now. It's not a Hebrew text anymore. This is kind of one of the things that bothers me about New Testament scholarship is they try to do this whole lens through. What is the original Hebrew lens that would? How should we should read the New Testament through this 700 BC Hebrew lens? No, read it as a 1st century 70 AD Greek who's reading the text for the first time. Like that's who's reading. That's who the audience is. It's not written in Hebrew. It's not written for people Jerusalem Aramaic people. It's written for people who are speaking Greek and Greek cities. Anyways, point I'm making is what would they hear when they hear the name Jesus? They would think Yay. It has connotations of healing. Yay and Yah, like Yason means like the healer. Jason, there are people named Jesus who actually changed their name to Jason. We know an example. Josephus tells us there was a guy named Jesus who changed his name to Jason to be more Greek. So they hear the name Jesus, they think healer, they think Yay. It's just natural. Like imagine if I made a story and the character's name is Healer Man and he's going around healing people. And I go, but this name has nothing to do with why he's healing people. It actually has to do with an Argentinian etymology. Hilalala. That's what it's from. It's like you'd be like, what the hell? That's kind of crazy, right?
Well, that's why I brought up Muhammad, to kind of actually add to your point, is that there's still a dude. We think most scholars agree there's a guy, Muhammad, but the name itself carries more than just, the guy's name was just Muhammad. There's something that is of value likely to that name being a title. So there's a title and a real dude there. And, you know, I know that that's what you're kind of hinting at here with Jesus, it seems, instead of Yahushua or some crap, you know what I mean, to try and keep it in Joshua, you know what I'm saying? So anyway, okay. Zalmoxis, bro, we got to have fun with him, because I think you have Herodotus pulled up on your computer. I have Herodotus on my shelf, and it's book 4, paragraph 94, 95, if my memory serves me correct. And dude, I love this text. I don't know why I love it so much, because it's so funny how Herodotus is like looking down at the Gittai people, but in a way he's still documenting them, and he empathizes with them too. And this character Zalmoxis, who's taught under Pythagoras and all that. Let's read that. It's only 2 paragraphs, bro. Let's read that. And can you zoom in by any chance? Oh, sorry, I meant to.
Is that?
Yeah, is there a way to like zoom in so we can go through those 2? It's 94 through 95, I believe. It should be 94 and 95.
So right here, he says, the Greeks who dwell outside the Hellespont, and this Zalmoxis, who was a man who once a slave in Samos.
No, go up. Yep, go up, because look, believing in no other god but their own. It's the paragraph before that, 94.
Okay.
Sorry.
He says, and
maybe 93.
Guitar, who pretend to be immortal, the Thracians, above all, the town who are called the Kyromeniae, surrendered themselves to Darius, but the Getae, who are the bravest, law-abiding of all Thracians, resisted. As they're claiming to be immortal, this is how they show it. They believe they do not die, but that he who perishes goes to the god Zalmoxis. You know what's so interesting about this is, if this is really coming from a Pythagorean, if Herodotus is right, that this is somehow linked to the Pythagorean rituals, then it's the Orphic mysteries. It's just, instead of Osiris or Dionysus, it's Zalmoxis. That's exactly what happens in the Orphic mysteries. You go to be with Dionysus, or in the case of the Egyptian, this is the book right here. I recommend.
Let me put you full screen.
Orpheus and the Roots of Platonism, and he shows how all this stuff actually goes back to Osiris, the dying and rising stuff. But the point is, when you die, you go to be with Osiris. You're going with. This is what Christianity says. You go to be with Jesus.
Of course.
Right? And this is, but the Pythagoreans, according to Algus Ugandus, I can't pronounce his name. The Pythagoreans are borrowing this idea of you're going to be with Osiris, but they apply it to Dionysus in the Orphic mysteries. So now you have this claim here that you have this god Zalmoxis. When you die, you go to Zalmoxis, or Gebelesis, as some of them call. And every 5 years, they choose one by lot of their people and send them a messenger to Zalmoxis, charged to tell.
Does that mean they're rolling the dice to say, all right, it's you next? You know what I mean? By lot, right? Like,
three lances are held by their 2. Others seize the messenger to Zalmoxis by his hands and feet, swing hurl in aloft on his spear points. If he's be killed by the cast, they believe the god regards them with favor. If he's not killed,
sucks ass.
This is their own shit. This is not Orphic mystery stuff.
Yeah, but think about it. This is almost a form of almost like it's human sacrifice, right? It's in the same vein of human sacrifice.
Pierce by hand.
There's that piercing going on. I mean, I don't want to be too generic here, but
but yeah, he says it right here. He says, "For I myself have been told the Greeks who dwell by the Hellespont that Zalmoxis was once a man in Samos. He's been master being Pythagoras, and that's the same. That's the same one. It's the same one. Presently, after being freed and gaining great wealth, he returned to his own country. The Thracians were meanly living and simple-witted folk, but this Salmoxis knew Ionian usages. That's interesting, Ionian usages, and a fuller way of life than the Thracians, for he consorted with the Greeks, and moreover, one of the greatest Greek teachers, Pythagoras. Wherefore he made himself a hall, where he entertained and feasted the chief among the countrymen, and taught them that neither he nor his guests or any other descendants should ever die, but they should go to a place where they would live forever and have all the good things. That's a revolutionary idea in the ancient world, where Hades was like this gloomy place. This is an Orphic idea. This is what I'm trying to get at. This is very specific. This is Orphic mystery,
eternal bliss and happiness. Yes, this is heaven before Christians created a heaven, because Jews did not have that. They had
the same idea. Yeah. While he was doing, as I've said, teaching this doctrine, he was all the while making him an underground chamber. When this was finished, he vanished from the sight of the Thracians and descended into the underground chamber where he lived for 3 years. The Thracians wishing him back and mourning him for dead. Then in the 4th year, he appeared to the Thracians, and thus they came to believe that Salmoxis had told them. Such is the story.
Now look at what he says. Look at what I like how Herodotus says.
I neither disbelieve nor fully believe the tale.
Yeah.
But I think
he shows respect to him, even though he's like, I'm not so sure. But I think that's fun.
Well, it used to be thought 100 years ago, scholars would be like, Herodotus just makes up all this shit and just none of it's real. And then actually, as archaeology started getting better, we started there's some things that Herodotus got vindicated for. One of them was the marijuana thing. That the Scythians were hotboxing weed. What does he say? Cannabis.
Yeah.
He says the Scythians
does he use the term cannabis?
Cannabis. Yeah. He says the Scythians would burn cannabis, and the room would get all smoky, and they would get all high, and people were like, "What?" And then archaeologists found traces of cannabis in Scythia, where Scythia was.
Bro, they were just like us in so many ways. Come on. I mean, self-medicating and also, going into these, all that's typical, bro. All of that's typical. And common, I imagine, as long as you had access. So we've covered, let me pull up my chart one more time that I had earlier, just to see something's going to spark your interest. I can guarantee it. I want to zoom into so people could see it better, because it's pretty big chart here. All right. What did we not cover in this chart that you might want to address about dying and rising gods? I mean, there's not, you could say something about Eshmon if you wanted. We don't have to dwell on Inanna.
Ashmon's an important one, actually.
Baal, we didn't even deal with Baal. Telepinu, we did Heracles. Persephone, we could talk about, we could get into that.
We got to talk about Eshmon.
Okay.
So Eshmon, the reason why Eshmon's important is it's another Phoenician deity who's synced with Heracles and Melkart. So the god that Josephus is talking about when he says Heracles doesn't necessarily just have to be Melkart. It can some people have pointed out that in Josephus's time, Melkart and Eshmon were synced together as Melkart Eshmon, like one deity. They were it was like a dyad, but it's this deity who basically is Asclepius. There's a let me pull something up. Eshmon's there's a what is it? We
need an image of Eshmon. Let me pull up an image of Eshmon.
Encyclopedia. Yeah. Where he's holding the serpent. He holds the serpent. He's a healer. So he's like Jesus. Now here's the crazy part about Eshmon. His name. He's a healer. Okay, so he's a healer god. Jesus is a healer god. Asclepius. That's not a big deal, right? But his name, oil. Shmuna, theophoric element, Shmuna, meaning oil. So the Semitic word Shmon means oil. Did you know that?
We've talked about this. Yeah, the idea of anointment. Why would that be?
Yeah, exactly. The anointed is the one. So he functions the role in the Syrian pantheons with the one who oils, the one who heals, You know, it's like
Yeah.
a Christ, a
Asclepius.
Christ-like figure.
Yeah.
Now the Shmoneh, if you add a at the end of it, you make it feminine. It's the number 8. So Shmoneh is the number 8 in Hebrew. So he's the 8th son of
David. David is the 8th son of Jesse.
David is the 8th son, but Ashbun is the 8th son of the god Siddiq. And Siddiq is the king, Melech. He's literally the king of the gods, Siddiq, Melchizedek.
Right.
See what I'm saying? People are pointing this out. He's the 8th son of the god who's the king, whose name is Siddiq, Melchizedek. He's the king and his name's Siddiq. So it's not like at first he had 7 sons.
Jesus is of the priestly line of who?
Melchizedek. Yeah.
Right.
And then what's even in one more weird part about the number 8, Jesus is the name Yeshua Gematria 888.
Yeah, 888. Yeah, I've seen that before too.
So there's
I don't know what to do with all of it. I don't know what to do with all of it.
Crazy, dude. It's like,
right.
You know, so he's just a healer god. And by the way, his story, real quick, what's the story? Well, the story we get from Damascus, who's a Neoplatonist writer.
While you tell that story, let me share my screen. I'm going to show the picture of him just to give an idea for people.
And you find his temple too in Syria
I look whose image pops up too. Eshmun.
Yeah.
And whoever made that thumbnail knows how to get your attention, huh? Anyway,
go to his temple, Eshmun Temple. Temple of Eshmun, Wikipedia, right there. Temple of Eshmun.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's him too, right?
No, that's a temple boy. I don't know what that's something weird going on.
So you can see where it's at on the map. Okay.
Yeah. Well, you're clicked away already. You're clicked away. You're on a different page.
Oh, did I? Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm over here looking.
While you're pulling that up, the story it's very fascinating. Ashmun is a mortal who is met by the goddess Astarte, who's Aphrodite, and she falls in love with him because he's a beautiful hunter, right? Like Adonis. Mm-hmm. So we already have the Adonis-Venus story starting off. It's exactly the same. A beautiful hunter is loved by the goddess because of his looks. And then guess what happens? Ashmun is, he's like intimidated by her, and he castrates himself and dies and bleeds out like Attis does.
Eshmun does that?
Ashmun bleeds out and castrates himself.
How old is that primary source? Do you know?
Well, it's Damascus is telling the story, and he's a Neoplatonist.
Okay, so he has a tradition somehow.
Yeah, he's talking about the Eshmun tradition. And he says that Eshmun bleeds out from castration, dies, Aphrodite raises him up and makes him into a god, and then he comes back as this is what Damascus says, as the Asclepius of Beirut. So he dies as Attis and comes back as the Asclepius of Beirut.
Wow, bro, come on. Look, I'm just going through the visuals. This is on the Wikipedia page on the Temple of Eshmun, if anyone's interested.
Yeah, what are the dates of these temples?
Let me go up. It says Sidon. Let's go up to the top.
So the story that I told, I don't know. I have reason to doubt that it sounds Hellenistic actually, because it's got the Eshmun or it's got the Attis and Adonis elements. But this god and his tradition go back to the Iron Age.
Right.
So this is not some like made up thing that borrows from Christianity or anything, you know?
No.
It's if anything, it's borrowing from the theocracia that we've been talking about in this whole video. The whole tradition itself. You know, like the god Ion. You know what I'm talking about? Ion, who's born on December 25th of a virgin.
You want me to show the image of Ion? Okay.
Show the god Ion.
Ion God.
No, A.
Oh, no, it's A. Yeah. A. I thought it's A-E. Okay,
A-I-O-N. Yeah.
God. Let's do that. Yeah, this one right here.
See, he's got the serpent. He's the healer. He's got all the same traits. You know what I mean?
That's pretty wild.
There's like a type of god in the Hellenistic period that springs up. Serapis is one of them. And by the way, Plutarch.
And that's the zodiac, by the way, wrapped around him. Time itself.
Like Mithras.
Yep.
Go to the one. Oh, no, actually, that's not on there. But go to the bottom on this page.
Okay.
Where it says.
Where they're syncretized.
Yeah, where it says like Ion identified with the Dionysus by Christian Neoplatonic writers. So there's a you could see as a the Suda identifies Ion with Osiris and Adonis.
Right.
Hellenistic syncretic god Serapis is identified with Ion Plutonios. So you look at this a god who's born of a virgin, who resurrects.
Yep.
Resurrects annually. Osiris,
January
Dionysus,
6th. Yeah.
All these gods are being thrown out at you, and you got to think like, you really think the Christian religion has nothing to do with this? This is all happening separate, and there's no connection at all. All this is all just happening. Big coincidence, or they're just borrowing from Christians. That's what people will say. Not like it's just not happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
the
bro.
Roman religion is the big player. They are the Beatles. The Christians are the indie rock band that performs in a garage somewhere. They're the ones being influenced by the Beatles. It's not the other way around. The Roman imperial cult is not looking at some random cult in Judea and going, let's copy them. This 5% of the empire, those people, let's copy them. Like people lose their mind when they say stuff like that. There's no data to suggest that's happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. We have to deal with Asclepius since we're already here. I know that this is technically Eshmon. This is, various different, like it's its own god, but also he's been syncretized in so many ways. Mm-hmm. There are texts, and I do not have the sources ready. I should have brought them for the stream, where he's healing so many people from dying, according to their stories, that Zeus is getting complaints from Hades in the underworld. He's going, what the hell? The dead aren't even coming anymore. Like, can you stop him from raising people from the dead and doing all these healings, keeping them from dying? I got a job to do down here in the underworld. What the hell? And so Zeus gets pissed, and he's like, you're right, brother. You're right. Let me handle this. Lightning bolt. Zaps Asclepius. Apollo comes to Zeus, goes, hey, mofo, what the you think you're doing? That was my son. And so they end up finally honoring him and bringing him to Mount Olympus with an apotheosis where he becomes deified among the gods. But this guy was rocking the resurrection and miracles for 500, 400 years before Jesus. And we have even just the Epidaurian tablets, which I think are important. There's only 4 remaining today. There were 12 according to Pausanias. And some of those miracles, bro, Parallelomania caps coming on. I don't care. Some of those miracle stories are so strangely similar sounding to what I find in the Gospels that one of them has like a blind man who's getting healed and he starts to see
Serapis
trees and stuff.
Serapis heals, takes his spittle and spits into the eyes of the blind person, just like Jesus does, and now they can see again. And then Serapis touches people's hands and they grow back.
Well, I know that Vespasian did that.
Vespasian, and through the god Serapis.
Got it. I just didn't know if there was like a source where Serapis himself did it. Okay.
Well, that's who does it in the temple of
Serapis. Of course, through
Serapis is that god. He's that type of god. He's the god who holds the serpent rod and all that stuff. He's the healing. I would say Serapis is a theocracia of Osiris, obviously, Dionysus, Asclepius, Pluto, sort of the chthonic underworld healer deities, life-giving deities. So,
dude, I've had a blast. By the way, I love hanging out with you, and you and me are on a journey, and we love to nerd out on this stuff. Find out all the stuff we were not taught in Sunday school. We were not told at our fundamentalist college or fundamentalist schools and upbringing at church. There's something freeing about knowing this information. I think it's awesome to find out our ancient past. In some ways, it's not just nerding out. It's also reconnecting with it in a way. It's like renegotiating a connection with how these ancient people thought, all of that stuff. And I don't know if we covered. Is there something you're trying to show or?
I wanted to show some of the examples of the healing miracles for Asclepius.
Okay. I'm game.
I know Topos Text has the list of it. Topos Text.
While you look that up,
yeah,
I read there were 2 schools of scholarship that translated the Epidaurian tablets. There is a scholar, for those of you who believe in miracles or think something like that is the case, there's a scholar who translated them that believes these miracles that Asclepius performed happened. But then you have the other side who believe that it's propaganda and that they made them up. Well, why can't we do that for the Gospels is my point. You know what I'm saying? Like,
so here, this is the inscriptions from, I went there last year, Epidaurus, at Pidavros. I drove there by myself with someone I just met. I had to go. This was like it was number one on my list. I had to see this for myself, next to Mycenae and a few other places, and Arcadia. So look at this. 2 large inscriptions. This is in the museum. I saw it myself. Dated to 280 BCE. Stele number 1 says, cures of Apollo and Asclepius. Clio was a child for 5 years. After she had been pregnant for 5 years, she came as a suppliant to the god, slept in the Abaton. As soon as she left and got outside the sanctuary, she bore a son who immediately after birth washed himself at the fountain and walked about with his mother. In return for this favor, she inscribed in her offering, admirable is not the size of the tablet, but the divine. And that Clio carried the burden in her room for 5 years until she slept in the sanctuary, and he made her sound. 3 years pregnancy miracle. A man whose fingers, with exception of one, were paralyzed, came as a suppliant to the god. While looking at the tablets in the sanctuary, he expressed incredulity regarding the cures and scoffed at the inscriptions. He is doubting, but in his sleep he saw a vision. It seemed to him he was playing at dice below in the temple and was about to cast the dice. The god appeared, Epiphany, sprang upon his hand, stretched out his patient's fingers. When the god had stepped aside, it seemed to him, the patient, that bent his hand and stretched out his fingers by one. So he gets his hand back. Ambrosia of Athens, blind of one eye, came to Supplinus, a god. She walked about in the sanctuary. She laughed at some of the cures as incredible and impossible. The lame and the blind should be healed by merely a dream. In her sleep, she had a vision. It seemed that her god stood by her and that he would cure her, that a payment he would ask for her to dedicate to the sanctuary a silver pig as a memorial of her ignorance. By the way,
my favorite one is the guy who's born without eyeballs in his sockets, and he goes into the temple and sleeps in the Asclepion and wakes up, and his eyeball sockets are now full with eyes that see 20/20 vision.
Came as a suppliant to the god. He was so blind that one of his eyes only had eyelids left within them, nothing, but they were entirely empty. Some of those in the sanctuary laughed at his silliness to think he could ever recover his sight when one of his eyes had not even a trace of the ball, but only the socket. So he slept. A vision appeared to him. It seemed to him that the god prepared some drug, then opening his eyelids, poured it into them. When day came, he departed with the sight of both eyes restored.
I mean, come on, bro.
Now, here's what's so crazy about this. Philo talks about these people called the healers, the therapeutai. And the therapeutai come from the school of Parmenides, who are into healing and putting people in comas. I'm not kidding. This is what they do. There's a whole book about this called by Kingston, called The Dark Places of Wisdom. And the cult of Parmenides in Italy, they moved from Greece to Italy, and they had a temple of Apollo. So Apollo and Asclepius, both gods. So the same 2 gods, Asclepius and Apollo, they dedicated a temple there, a Doric temple. And the temple was connected to a cave that would take them underground, and they would bring the patients there, and they would put them in a coma with drugs. And then when they would come back with visions, that's the book. They would come back with visions about the underworld and metaphysical stuff. This is like Parmenides is a pre-Socratic dude. So like this is like the roots of Platonism, heaven and hell, all this stuff. But what's so funny about this is Philo talks about these therapeutai in Alexandria, saying that they're the most learned philosophers, they're men of virtue, they're healers. And I'm thinking to myself, Eusebius thinks these are proto-Christians.
Oh, wow.
So I think there's some overlap happening with the Asclepius healer cult and Christianity. One more thing. Eshmun, who's connected with Asclepius, right?
Right.
Guess where his temple was found?
Where?
Bethesda. The pool of
So-
Bethesda, where Jesus is healing people and doing all those miracles.
That's right.
That's
In
where the
John's
temple
gospel.
of Eshmun. The
So-
temple of Eshmun was found by the archaeologist.
Hold on. Let me pull up this exact. Okay.
It should be in that
The-
Wikipedia page of Eshmun.
Oh, is it?
It should be. I mean, maybe not. I don't
I could
know.
just pull up the passage because I think I know what you're talking
yeah.
about. The pool.
You're
the
talking about the
pool
pool. Yeah.
of Bethsaida. Let's do Asclepius, Eshmun waters. I know for a fact, I know what you're talking about. There's a scholar who wrote about this in the Gospel of John, that the waters would move and they would believe that this was like the god or gods healing. Hold on. This is, dude, we were there. We went to this. This is Scythopolis, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The temple
hold
of
on.
Eshmun was there.
Yes. We walked these streets, you and me both. Okay. And this is where we were sitting on the toilets, right? The same
Mhm.
place where the toilets were? Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. I would love to show that. Let me just show people where we were at. Just so people have an idea. But the pools that Jesus was saying, hey, when the waters move, people can get into them. Here, check this out. So this is an example. Remember the video we recorded there? None of the audio worked to this day. Yeah, I went back and looked at the hard drive. None of the audio at this place, that big ass auditorium. Then we went and sat on the toilets, or at least some of them sat on the toilets. And then we went and looked down the streets and the big mountain right there in Scythopolis, where Dionysus was clearly held as a very important figure. And he had, I think, wasn't one of his Maenad, one of the people who cared for him as a child died, and he buried her in this place. This is only 18 miles from Nazareth, where we were at near Sepphoris.
Yeah.
So this is right down the street.
Oh, yeah. And there's all Sanctuary of Pan over there, too. Remember, we went to that one, too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother underworld place. Yeah. Golly, dude. Okay, what did we need to touch on before we wrap things up? We've talked about Osiris. Demuzi, Inanna, Baal. We didn't really go deep into Baal.
I do want to show just real quick when Herod or what's his name? Plutarch. I want to because I want people to understand the ancient Platonists, Plutarch's a Middle Platonist, they saw these gods as kind of one tradition in that time period. Like they're all different traditions, obviously, but as Platonism becomes the dominant philosophy, the need for pantheons is gone. They bring traditions together. They want a monad and a triad or a dyad. They want like one god with one messenger. So usually you have like Yahweh and Jesus is a perfect example of a Platonic setup. A god and his messenger, his intermediary. And like Mithras and Sol Invictus is another one where you have Sol Invictus is like the main god and Mithras is like this mediator in between. Very Platonic how it's set up. Well, Plutarch.
You have the source
on Isis and Osiris. Let me look this up. On Isis, and let me share my screen.
Yep. Hit that like button, everybody. It'll rise the gods from the dead.
So, what does he say? He says, Harpocrates. That's the winter solstice one. Wait, no, I'm sorry, not that one. Apathis. So this child, this god Apathis, who by the way, his name means like the touched one. He's born from Zeus touching, just literally light.
That don't sound right. That don't sound right.
Yeah. So it's okay. So after a long-winded description of like all these gods being one god. Plutarch's basically going, Dionysus is Osiris, but he's also Apollo. He's also the sun. Here's why. He goes through this whole thing. And eventually he just kind of throws up his hands and he says, like, Dionysus is the son of Zeus and Isis, and it's not called Osiris, but Esarphes, spelled with an A, the name denoting virility. Hermaeus, too, makes this statement in the first volume of the book called The Egyptians. He says that Osiris, properly interpreted, means sturdy. I leave out the account of Menasius, annexation of Dionysus, Osiris, and Serapis to Apathis.
Right.
As well as Anticletus' statement that Isis was the daughter of Prometheus, wedded to Dionysus. He's basically saying, like, all these traditions that are all similar, it's because they're all the same god. He's like, don't get caught up on the names, like, whatever. Macrobius, so that's 2nd century, that's early 2nd century. Macrobius goes even farther with this argument. Look what Macrobius says in Saturnalia. Ready for this?
Ready.
Iao, the name of Dionysus, right?
Right.
He says, Apollo, the god of the oracle of Delphi, is asked. Orpheus, Apollo is asked, like, who, from the sacred verse is called, who is this god? Iao. That's the name of literally, that's the name of the Septuagint Yahweh. 3 letters.
Yeah.
And so the god Apollo replies, those who know the mysteries should conceal things not to be sought. But if your understanding is slight, your mind is feeble. They say that the greatest god of all is Iao. Hades in the winter, Zeus in the start of spring, Helios in the summer, Helios right there, and delicate Iacchos, Dionysus, in the fall. You see what they're doing here?
Yeah.
Iao is this godhead of all the gods rolled into one.
It's Yahwism.
He literally calls it a godhead right here. Developing interpretation of the godhead, and identifies that Father Liber and the Son as Iao. So this is Platonism, dude. This is what Platonism. This is why when I read the Gospels and I'm seeing, is Jesus? Is he Dionysus? No, he's not Dionysus. He's Jesus. There's Dionysian elements. Is there Apollonian elements too? Yeah. Is there Asclepian elements? Yeah.
Yes.
Is there Hermes elements? Yeah. Because this is what Platonism is doing. It's taking all the plurality away and unifying to the monad. That's the whole point of Platonism. Christianity is Jewish Platonism. It's it's Philo. It's Philo's religion. Philo is a Platonist and a Jew. If you want to know where Christianity comes from, read Philo. Philo, by the way, Philo says great things about the Greek gods. He doesn't call them demons. In fact, this is the last thing I want to show you guys. What does Philo say about demons? Do you know?
What do I say? Like, it's the Greek concept. He doesn't seem to have the same idea that later Christians have, from what I understand.
He says, demons. Look at this. Behold, these things are called daimonos by the philosophers. But the sacred record, the Bible, the books of the holy words, see, Hieros, Logos, the holy words, the holy Bible. They don't call it Bible yet. This is before the Bible, so it's like the holy words calls them angels or messengers, angelos. So, or messengers, employing an apter title, for they both convey the bidding of the father to his children and report the children's need to their father.
So there's no like moral.
The
evil.
gods of the Greeks are angels.
Right.
They're intermediaries between the one, Plato's good God, the one, who I guess is Yahweh, the Yod, He, Vav, He, right? Yao. The gods are just messengers. As long as they're carrying out his will, they're messengers. If they're if they're doing their own thing and they're leading you astray and they're not giving you virtue, then they're just demons that are evil. But a demon is not necessarily evil. That's a later Christian idea that you get with like St. Augustine. St. Augustine's, that's like 4th, 5th century Christian theology. But Philo says great things about Greek gods. Daimons are guiding spirits. They're leading you towards the good. They're leading you to God. Mm-hmm. Daimons are angels. That's what he says. So you see what I'm saying? So the point I'm making is like, there is no separation between paganism, Judaism, Christianity, Orphism. These are all, we make these distinctions because we think of things. Oh, are you a Muslim? I'm a Orthodox Jew. I'm an Orthodox Christian. I'm a Protestant from the Latter-day Saints. That's all modern bullshit. The ancients didn't think that way.
I think that the dichotomy would be their ethics, or what was more noble. And people like Justin Martyr weren't arguing their guy this happened, C.S. Lewis, but yours didn't. No, the demons imitated Christ beforehand, which is such a terrible excuse.
Yeah.
But then he points out his excuse on why Jesus is superior is simply that he was a better guy in their view. Oh, he was more moral. That was it. It was all about what you've talked about with the philosophy, your recent debate with Jay Dyer and stuff about like ethics, right? What is it to be a noble human? This is a peak observation in philosophy. You made me think of Yahwism briefly. I just thought it was interesting. And I think I've sent you this. I don't know if you took the time to read this. Giovanni Garbini talking about like Yahweh. Then I didn't want to get lost in it, but just to point out, because he thinks that this Yahweh goes back into like, he fights against Martin Noth, W.F. Albright, H.B. Huffman.
Where does he say it comes from?
He thinks it's from the north. He thinks this goes way, way back, and it's not from the south like most scholars. And then remember I told you the name My Son is Yal, which comes from, he believes, Ugaritic, the ball cycle, which could be Yam. And he points that out. Many scholars hasten to correct the text or remove the mention of Yal. When the arbitrariness of that procedure was pointed out, they found different ways to deny the evidence. One was to see the Yal as a usual verbal form interpreted in different ways. One was to suggest a phonetic variant of Yam, the Ugaritic god of the sea. Very few scholars follow Abbe H. Cazeles in accepting the existence of the god Yal in Ugarit, even though he is a god who, moreover, this is the important point, continues to be attested in the area even in the next millennium, as Porphyry testifies in Eusebius. Yahweh. Yep. And that's
so
the same god.
The Sanchoniathan story, when they talk about him in Philo-Biblos and Porphyry and Eusebius, they say he's a priest of Yayo.
Right.
But he's a Phoenician. So it's not in Jerusalem. It's a different Yahweh. Some other different. So there could be another Yahweh tradition. I'm totally on board with that.
Bro, I wish we had Porphyry, because reading carefully this preparation for the Gospels, it sounds like he's saying,
even get me started.
Some of those
conspiracy theory brain
bro,
goes on. I think
mine goes on. Mine goes on because I wonder if he has the same traditions.
Important Platonist of his time, first of all.
Right.
So why do we have all of the Proclus? Why do we have all of Plotinus? Why do we have all of Plotinus and Plutarch? But all of a sudden, Porphyry, the guy who writes against Christianity, we lose all of his works magically.
Bro, no, they got rid of him. They got rid of him.
Happens to be the one guy who talks about Mithras as the monad and all this weird stuff that might be uncomfortable for Christians to read today.
Yeah, bro.
I'm just saying. That's my conspiracy theory brain going off right there.
Get rid of. I thought that there was.
I think they burned Porphyry's books. That's what I think.
I think they did. Did the Christians get rid of Porphyry?
Yeah, I think they burned
Porphyry's works. Let me just see, because I do think I think that there was
at the very least they intentionally.
Look, Christians actively destroyed Porphyry's works, and this is one of the clearest documented cases of Christian censorship of philosophical opponents in late antiquity.
He destroyed
Porphyry. He's a 3rd century Neoplatonist philosopher, 234 to 305, student of Plotinus. He wrote against the Christians. By the way, he was a Christian, so he knew this better than Celsus. He knew this better than a lot of the guys who were critiquing, because he internally was a Christian.
I heard there was 2 Porphyries, but you could be right though. I know I've heard different. The Porphyry of the Christian,
that was
Porphyry of the Platonist. But no, you could be. But I heard this. That's debated though. That it could be the same guy.
If he did, it's
right.
even better.
Yeah.
It's like you and me talking about Christianity.
It'd be interesting to know which one. Yeah, which one. Either way, you're right. Yeah.
Well, look, Emperor Constantine's edict in the 4th century is the first Christian emperor, of course, we all know, reportedly ordered Porphyry's anti-Christian writings to be burned. And this is referenced by church fathers like Macarius Magnus. And evidence, too, is Emperor Theodosius II in 448. A surviving imperial edict specifically mandates that Porphyry's writings against the Christian religion shall be sought out and burnt. Yep. And then, of course, the church fathers, Jerome, Augustine, Cyril of Alexandria, they all admit it.
The only fragments that survive from Porphyry mention the winter solstice of being a time of resurrection. And it's in the 3rd century when, right around the time of Hippolytus, writing about December 25th, or supposedly, Porphyry also is saying that souls enter and exit through the portals, which are the summer solstice and winter solstice, he says. So he says generation and regeneration.
You had T.C. Schmidt.
Winter solstice.
Yeah, T.C. Schmidt kind of like,
he was blown away
I've never seen that.
Yeah, he was blown away by that.
That was cool. I remember Porphyry mentioned in that writing, which we do not have preserved. We have it through Eusebius, right? That there is parallel tradition to the Phoenicians, had a parallel tradition where what we find in the Bible was already there in a lot of these stuff. So you know how you and I like to flirt with where are the prior stories of Abraham, where are the prior stories of these other characters? There seems potentially a hint that the Phoenicians already had these stories and the biblical authors imitated them, but we do not have those stories existing. They did not last. And if we would have had Porphyry's actual writings on this, that'd have been amazing for him to have primary sources and say, quoting such and such, such and such. You guys just borrowed these stories from the Phoenicians. You invented the Abraham tale from the Phoenicians. You did it, whatever it might be. We've lost it, bro. Imagine if it was that damning and it was a comparative mythology kind of treaty that showed you guys just ripped off the Phoenicians and it's not original to you. Oh, man, that would be damning.
Wow.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Neal, what do you have to say to everyone, man? I think we should wrap things up here because we're getting.
I think I said enough. I think we're good. This is fun, man. We'll do it again soon.
Like we always do. Check out Neal's Patreon. Help support him out. Help support us out. I mean, look, we're trying to bring more and more scholarship, more and more ideas to the world. And if you didn't think that dying and rising gods was a thing, because there was a movement in scholarship, a consensus of following.
We didn't even get to Romulus.
Oh, we didn't. No,
we don't. I'm done though. I'm tapped.
Yeah. Because
there's another god who gets taken away, dies basically. He's gone and then returns again. You know, so
appearance. Yeah, he's appearing.
He appears to his disciples once more.
We didn't get to Apollonius appearing either. Apollonius of Tyana. Like there's so many different things that we didn't touch. I just figure I would just say thanks for your time, man. I enjoy this, and that the consensus was there is no dying and rising gods. Trygve Medinger, I think, revived the idea. Paola Carente, PhD, peer-reviewed literature.
I looked into that. That's never been the consensus among good. So this idea that there's a consensus, who's taking the consensus? That's what I want to know.
Okay.
Did you take a poll? Did Bart Ehrman take a poll did he take 500
Well, he's in the Bible.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So you get a few New Testament scholars who are popular who will just say things like, it's called weasel words in philosophy. The overwhelming scholarly consensus is there is no dying and rising gods. And then you find specialists, classicists, anthropologists, people who actually study the classical world who are saying, here, it's right here. There's no opinion here. It's subjectively true that they exist. Here they are. And so it literally makes you lose faith in New Testament scholarship when you see that stuff.
Interesting.
Because you can see with your own eyes, they're objectively incorrect about this. And I don't know what their consensus is that they're getting this consensus from, but there's only a few handful of people that's ever said this.
I also think it's important to point out there usually is trends. So when a popular scholar thinks something or an idea, it's easy for that to catch on and then now everyone else just
appears,
repeats it.
It appears to be like a consensus, and then once you actually dig deeper into the actual experts in these fields, it's never what these mainstream pop scholars are saying. They're just like surface dwellers. They're scratch the surface in these topics. They have no idea what they're talking about. I tell people don't even read that stuff. That's whatever. I'm not gonna get into it.
Yeah.
Don't even bother reading popular New Testament studies. It's wasting time.
I think we just keep getting these voices and various scholars. We have a symposium we're producing. You
Dr.
and I
Bart
both.
Ehrman, how many disciples did Jesus have? 12 or 13? Like questions like that. Like what are we doing here? We're wasting time.
Look, I think that we want to have a buffet of all the voices. Yeah, and that way people can hear the debate,
actually, no, I shouldn't say sure. I disagree with that.
You don't want a buffet.
I disagree. Not everyone needs a voice. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that the debate is
actually
is
no,
important.
not sorry. Not everyone needs a voice.
Yeah.
If you're not adding anything good, don't talk.
Yeah, I don't make that judgment call for the viewer. I let the viewer, make that judgment call. I guess you and I do different. We do different things.
No, I know.
Yeah. But I get it. You have a lot more. You've had some beef, I'll say, with some people from the past. You know what I'm saying? When you're arguing these things,
I guess you can call it that.
I mean, I'm just the best analogy I can give is that you've had tensions, you've had
of course,
collisions with.
This is what I believe, man.
Yeah. Well, Neal, are you going to convert soon, or?
Oh yeah.
I mean, clearly Jesus rose from the dead. Aren't you convinced? I mean, all of the others didn't, but this guy, he did.
Clearly, it's all historical.
Absolutely. Any plugs before we leave? What are you working on, man? And then I'll share what I'm working on.
Just stay tuned, and you'll see what's coming down the pipeline. That's it.
Okay. I got a bunch of stuff I'm working on. Too much to even get into, but documentaries, interviews, live streams. If you haven't been watching, a lot of deconversion stories, people telling their own experiences. Yeah, man. And check out the courses too. If you ever want to listen to some scholarship, we've got some courses. So, all right, bro. What do we say here? Usually we say you have just
attained true gnosis.
True gnosis. And never forget, we are MythVision. Peace.
Son, do you want to know what the truth is? After this, there's no turning back. You take the blue pill and you wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill and you stay in Wonderland, and I show you just how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.